All right, welcome back to the IMNerd podcast. I'm your host, Freyway, and I'm here with my co-host, Kenny. And today we are back to talk about something that has been pending in our inbox for a long time, and I feel a little bad about it, so I wanted to do a whole episode dedicated to just listener letters, essentially, because we do have an open inbox. If you write into IMNerdpodcast@gmail.com, we have listener letters that we are willing to read out on the show and discuss them. So they're basically like, you can write in whatever you want, and as long as it's not something outrageously wild, and even then, like, so far we haven't gotten any that are too left field. Everyone that we've gotten, I think we've read them at some point, but we just had a crazy backlog because we typically don't do listener letters when we have guests, and we've had a lot of guests on the podcast in the last several months, but I don't want you guys to feel neglected. So to preface this whole thing, if you want us to read your letter aloud on the show, just write into IMNerdpodcast@gmail.com, and Kenny and I will read it and discuss it like we're going to do in this episode. But before we get into that, I just want to ask my co-host Kenny, how are you doing today? How's life?
Fucking tired, yo.
Why? You stayed up all night last night playing Final Fantasy 16.
Not all night, but
when did you end your stream?
I don't know, one maybe.
Okay, that's not as long as I know you can go.
I think like one or two. I don't remember. But then I was up at 7 because my girlfriend has work in the morning. Mm-hmm. Well, she didn't have work until 12, but she wanted to go to the gym in the morning with me. So we ended up waking up at like 7 to go to the gym, and then did the gym, and then walked home, and then I'd been up all day, and I'm just fucking exhausted.
Well, that's good. You're still sticking with the fitness routine and all that stuff?
Unfortunately. Yeah. I would have normally gone like at 12, but instead I went at 7, so yeah. Well, every day it's different.
It's different.
But
yeah. As long as you go, because like today I haven't worked out yet. I got to do my 30 minutes. So I figure after this podcast, I'll do my 30 minutes of exercise. Then I was gonna do it at 12, but then I ate a hoagie. I ate half of a hoagie, and I ate like some peanut chews, and I just sat on the couch afterwards. And I was like, I'm not. You said you're hungry?
Yeah, I'm so down to eat a hoagie. Yeah, like I said, I slept. I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm not Frasier, so I don't know math by just hearing numbers. I can't go like 2, 7. I don't answer. Yeah. So I count on my hands. Anyway,
it's 5 hours so adorable when you count on your hands. So you still do that?
I do. Yeah. Side note, I know this isn't what anybody came here for, but side note, counting on your hands is super viable. And I have a bone to pick with the school system, okay? So my little brother, for years, back when he was learning math in school, he would like really struggle with doing the math, like figuring it out and everything.
He was trying to do mental math?
Yeah, but not only that, they really stress, especially with the times tables, they really stress you just memorizing 8 times 8 and 6 times 7 and 5 times 3. And they stress you memorizing the times tables, right?
Right.
But what I learned and realized while doing math with him is that he didn't know how to do math. Like, he was memorizing the times tables and doing what the school told him to do.
Oh, I get what you mean. Yeah, he only knows 8 times 3 is 24 because he just knows 8 times 3 is 24, but he's not actually doing 8 plus 8 plus 8.
Exactly. He didn't understand what multiplication was. Right. And so...
like what's actually happening.
Yes. And so I went through this whole thing explaining what actually multiplication was, and I was showing him it's okay to use it. Like, I used my fingers, and I was using my fingers to count and do like, okay, 8 plus 8 is you do 8, 9, 10, 11, and then do it again, and then do it again, and use your fingers to keep track. Yeah. And anyway, the school got mad. Like, the school tried to get mad at him and being like, he's not allowed to use his fingers to do math. And I was like, you guys aren't teaching him math. Like,
like, if you're just teaching him how to memorize what a sequence of numbers and signs are, then that's not really teaching him math per se, because kids have really strong memories, right? So I could memorize the entire times tables from 1 to 12 with no, like, it wouldn't be difficult to do that. And in fact, that's what I did as a kid because they stressed us doing that. But I realized that I didn't know what was actually happening until I took it into my own hands to realize, like, oh, 7 times 3 is 21, but why is it actually 21? Like, it's 7 plus 7 plus 7 is another way to say 7 times 3. And once you start understanding that and how numbers all work together, like multiplication and division are the same, addition and subtraction and all that, once you get the relationship between numbers, then you can just do all the math. Like, you can just do math, period.
Yeah, because the problem really rears its head when you see a kid that knows all of his times tables, and then you go, okay, what's 8 times 13?
Yes, and then they like, go, whoa, that one isn't on the fucking chart. How do I do that? Yeah. That is problematic.
So use your fingers, all right, if you have to. Anyway, I hate the way schools do certain things.
I don't like the new math that they teach kids now in school. I know kids
I don't
come
even know
home.
what that's about. I know like I know it's called Common Core, but I don't know anything else about it.
I hate it. Every time I've ever seen it, I just think that it's absurdly confusing and pretentious for no reason. Like I genuinely don't think that the way math was being taught, at least I went to a private school, so maybe it's different, but I really don't think there was anything special about my private school's teaching per se. It was just the discipline was really high. And I think that that's like the difference between public and private in Philadelphia. But like the way we were taught math was the way probably everyone listening to this podcast understood it. But then the way they teach it now is basically like they start you off with algebra. The kids are learning algebra as step one, essentially.
It's so weird.
Instead of learning, like you say, 8 times 13, right? Instead of learning 8 times 13, they're learning like algebraic equations. And I don't think you should start there personally. I'm no teacher or whatever, but I just think that I started learning algebra in like 7th grade. And by the time I was learning algebra, my brain had already completely understood long division, multiplication, dividing fractions, all these other things, right? Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. I had all these other math techniques in my head. So when algebra came along, solving for X wasn't the craziest thing in the world because I know how math works. I didn't just memorize the times tables, but
they also, I think math, this isn't my idea. It's kind of just the rule of life. And this is what's been said to me throughout but math is building blocks, right? You start with 2 plus 2. And maybe that starts with, if you have 2 apples and somebody gives you 2 apples, how many apples that you have, right? Math starts with really simple foundational building blocks, right?
Yeah.
Addition and subtraction.
Yep.
And then that evolves into multiplication and division, which are just like advanced forms of addition and subtraction.
Yeah.
And then like you take that and go further. And then before you start doing real algebra, I remember, in like 3rd grade, you get questions where it's like, they'll do like 5 plus 6 is 11. But then the next one will be like 5 plus blank is 12. And you have to just fill the blank in. And so that's solving for X. You don't realize it, but that's very basic algebra. But anyway, that was a super side rant. I said all that to say, 5 hours of sleep. I counted on my fingers to figure out how long that was. Then I went to the gym. Then we made sausage and eggs, and with like other shit in it. Sausage and eggs, and then I was up all day. And then all this leading to Fraser saying he had a hoagie, and me saying I'm hungry, and I wish I could have a hoagie right now, but I don't think there's anywhere near me that makes good hoagies. But I also already have my dinner made for the night. So around 9 o'clock, I'm just gonna fucking pop that shit open, reheat it.
What do you have?
What
do you have for tonight? Like, what's your dinner?
For today and for the next 5 days, we made. What the fuck was that for?
Because you said for the next 5 days.
Yeah. What we do is we usually make 2 meals. Yeah. We make 2 meals.
Listen, this is not lost on me or anyone listening to this.
Hey, it might be lost. Who knows?
Okay.
But I make 2 meals. We put them in 5 containers each. So 10 containers, 2 meals. So over the next 5 days, I'll have whatever amount of meal. Anyway, I have a buffalo chicken rice bowl, which is really good. And then I just have
sounds amazing.
Burritos and like ground beef and rice and stuff to make burritos. And over the next 5 days, I'll interchange between those every other day.
Yeah. Okay. So you have 2 meals that you're alternating between every day, essentially, is what's happening. Okay, that makes it a lot more bearable. I think that's the correct way to do it, in my opinion, because when I used to meal prep, and it didn't last very long, but I used to meal prep, it would just be chicken breast, rice, and broccoli. And needless to say, the reason why it didn't last long is because how many fucking days in a row do you think I can sustain chicken, rice, and broccoli before I decide, with all the money in my bank account, to finally just go on Uber Eats and be like, fuck this, dog. I need something. It doesn't necessarily have to be like Wendy's or McDonald's, but I need
just something else. Yeah.
After a while, I'm like, I'm just going to order a Chipotle bowl, or I'm going to order acai bowl because I love acai bowls, or stuff like that. Like I just can't. I can't do the every day the same meal. And I know some people who do meal prep. A lot of Instagram ads come across my page now, and there are always people who do meal prep or like Blue Apron and stuff like that. But I think I could do it better if it was 2 or 3 meals that are being alternated, because I do eat the same shit for the most part every day. Like today I had a hoagie, and then also last Friday, so when we're recording this right now, it's Tuesday. On Friday I had a hoagie as well. So I can eat, and if you don't know what a hoagie is in Philadelphia, it's just a sandwich on a long roll. So like turkey, cheese, mayo, whatever you want on it, onions, tomatoes, lettuce, whatever, on a long roll though. And So that's a hoagie in Philadelphia, and it's amazing. Like Philadelphia is, I think it came from here. Like I think it's one of the things that we're known for.
Pretty sure we invented it, and if we didn't, we make it the best. And
Yeah,
it's not called
it's
hero, and it's not called a sub.
right here. It is literally insane. Same thing. We have water ice. I know people call it Italian ice in other places. We have
Wrong.
water ice here. Yeah, literally wrong. So yeah,
we made it. Why do people? We made it. Stop changing the name.
It's like we made the cheesesteak. And when you go to other places, they'll have like steak with cheese or something. It's like, well, that is just not the fucking thing that I asked for, right? So
like chopped
if you're not,
steak.
yes,
stop trying to no.
If you're not in Philadelphia, don't order a cheesesteak. Just let me give you a word of advice. When I was younger, when I used to travel for Yu-Gi-Oh, I made the rookie mistake of not realizing that the place that I came from was just the best place to get certain things. I didn't know because I was in my very early 20s. And I just started my first ever time taking a plane. I was 20 years old. It was YCS Atlanta. That was my first time ever getting on a plane in my life. So I didn't start traveling until I was 20 years old. And at that time, when I did, I was like, oh, let me try a cheesesteak from another place. Like I was in, let's say, I don't know, North Dakota or some shit. And they had Philly cheesesteak on the menu. Like Philly cheesesteak is an item on the menu. And I was like, oh shit, let me try. Like I want to try the North Dakota version of the Philly cheesesteak. Dear God. It is so fucking bad. So yeah, I learned my lesson. Don't try things. Like if something says New York style pizza and you're not in New York, do not order that. Like don't.
Yeah, it just won't be New York style pizza.
Yeah.
Like, or if it is, it'll be a really bad attempt at it.
Exactly.
It's all terrible. It's all terrible. But yeah, we do on one day we'll cook a big batch of food, put it all together, and then typically 2 meals. And it's been working out pretty well.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's actually get into some listener letters. So I think I'm going to work backwards for this. Instead of starting from the oldest one, I'm going to read one of the ones that we got very recently because I really just like this listener letter. It's very long, so bear with me because I'm going to be reading it out loud. But also, what's in this as content I think is really good. Let me make this a little bigger before I start though. Okay, so I think I have it all. Let me make sure I don't have to like scroll or anything weird like that. Okay, so this listener letter comes from LK Mizora 112, and he said, or I actually don't know if you're a male or female. So they said, there's a lot I'd like to talk about. We'll start with that I love short anime too. Death Note, Steins Gate, Death Parade, Heaven's Memo Pad, 91 Days, To Your Eternity. I just recently watched that with someone that I was dating in like January. Yeah, it was in January. And I actually really liked season 1 of To Your Eternity. I think that they could have just ended it pretty much where it ended at. But yeah, I genuinely like To Your Eternity. And then he says, Fate Zero are all ones that I would love to hear you guys talk about. I enjoy all the episodes. My favorite one is the one with first additional boss. So whatever our first optional boss was, whoever that was, I guess they're saying
I think that was Quest.
Yes, Quest was actually the first optional boss. That is correct.
Yeah, he was the first one that we So okay, funny story.
Ezuko was the first true optional
that we
boss
actually recorded a fucking episode with.
Yes,
the very first optional boss still hasn't come on the recorded episode. I message him like once a month and I go, hey, you still have to record an episode with us, or like you're still owed an episode. Like we owe you. And he goes, oh yeah, I forgot. And he like keeps
person paid the $100 to be an optional boss on our Patreon and never actually came on the podcast or anything. They just were like, you know what? I just want to show the highest form of support, which obviously we really appreciate that. But they never actually came on the podcast, and I think
he'll be coming soon. Though he did message me very recently saying he has an idea for what he actually wants to talk about, what the topic to be. So I think that actually will happen.
That would be really fun because the other option was I know that at one point was it him who mentioned that he might gift it to someone?
Maybe
somebody was like I could gift the optional boss to someone else. Like I'll have like, I don't know, Alex Flamer or something come on as the gift or whatever. But anyways, let me continue with this listener letter. So it goes on to say, I'm about to go on a rant, kind of a thought piece. If this is too long, I understand. Something that's really stuck with me is the talk about time manipulation. I believe that this power just leads to existential dread. You either find too much change to do or are unable to change anything that matters ultimately. I'm not sure if you've seen Steins Gate, so I have, and I believe Kenny has as well. Have you, Kenny?
Yeah, Steins Gate just is awesome. So yeah, I've seen it.
So I'm not sure if you've seen Steins Gate, so I'm going to talk as generally as possible, and I'm not going to mention any specific events. Between watching Steins Gate and Attack on Titan, you get a real good picture of what time can do. Depending on what direction and scale, there's different downsides that come with each version of time manipulation, and having both versions of time manipulation does not make them both better. If you could do both general versions of time powers, they actually blend together well in terms of being able to do both. Now, this is just from a hypothetical, logical standpoint on how this power would affect someone and how time in our universe can work. In general, there's two ways one can go about manipulating time, and both just add up to the same conclusion. Having both powers on a dimmer switch to control the degree you use the power makes the decisions you make more impactful. Both of these have overlap in how they work in these examples, but there's a clear line between them. Eren. So this is the Eren section. So Eren Yeager gets to see the future memories that his future self sends back. While what I'm about to describe isn't exactly this, his power is a quirky example where the attack on Titan, a quirky example where the attack Titan doesn't control what it sees. But essentially what makes this time power different is that he knows the future and uses the knowledge to change rather than being there and changing it directly. He sees events of the future that he must use trial and error to recheck his progress without being able to directly affect the outcome. He is forced to become the evil in the world to motivate everyone else to come up with a solution better than the rumbling. He must do the rumbling rather than any other power being the villain, because if he is the evil, he at least chooses who has freedom. He became the evil to save Paradise Island and is dependent on them to save the world from the rumbling he started. This is strictly in terms of the current Eren's ability to see the future memories. The future Eren has to coax the current Attack Titan to do things. If Eren could have just slaughtered the royal family himself, he would have. But in the past visions, he only has so much he can do, so he told Grisha to get up. Essentially, this style was more roundabout and isolates events, creating opportunities to change the future with your past actions, but you're limited on what all you can change. It's more like the future/past comes to him in the present rather than him leaving and going to the future past. Okay, so let's stop here before you go into Okabe from Steins Gate. So Eren's power is essentially not him literally time walking. Eren doesn't actually visit the future. He doesn't actually visit the past. That's not how his power works. The way it works is, and this is now officially like me talking, and it's going to be me and Kenny just talking about this. The way his power works is he can send from the future memories backwards to older versions of the Attack Titan. So it would be like the current me right now, the Fraser that is talking right now, able to talk to the Fraser before he won a YCS. So that would be 19-year-old Fraser. I would be able to talk to him and say things to him, like, for example, don't activate Central right there. And that in that way, I am essentially like controlling time, because if I go back and tell a past version of myself to do something different, that's going to change the outcome of that game, right? And then that will change everything. So if a version of me from the future went back in the finals against McCabe and said, like, don't solemn that, let that go, and then I ended up winning the YCS because that thought came to my mind from a different version of me, then I am changing the future essentially by doing that. But it's not the same as like, you know, me right now going back to play McCabe in the finals as a younger version of myself or whatever, with the knowledge that I have of Yu-Gi-Oh right now, where I'm a much better player than I was at 19 when I won. I'm a much better player now than I was, and it would be like, you know, it'd be way different. Everything would be way different. So Eren's powers are obviously, they're anything time manipulation, time walking, like it's all broken, despite the fact that he doesn't directly go back and forth in time himself. Sending your memories back, though, for all intents and purposes, is very similar. It'd also be crazy to think that I could say, invest in Bitcoin to my younger self. Because I had the opportunity when Alistair told me about it in like 2011. He told us about it, and I remember them being around, I don't remember the price, but I remember $15, I think, was the going price. And if not, then I would have got multiple. But something about $15 came up in the conversation he had when he was telling me and Silverman that we should buy this thing. And we were like, you're always on some black market shit. We kind of made fun of him because that's just what we did. And we didn't buy any Bitcoin. It would be the same. Like if I could do that right now and tell my younger self to buy Bitcoin in 2011, buy as much as you can afford and just never sell it until 2020. That would be absurd, right? Like that's just an absurd thing to be. Or if you want to be even better than that, you could just say like invest in Apple when you're in 05. Like invest in Apple in 05. And I think that when I looked at, there was something that showed how much, like the percentage of change, the percentage of growth of Apple, of Bitcoin, of Ethereum, of every single like high value asset that you could own going back 20 years. And I think Apple was just off the fucking charts. Like it was Apple from 20 years ago. So right now it'll be 2003 to 2023. Apple from 2003 to 2023, the percentage of increase was so outrageous. It was like, yeah, you could just say, put all your money in Apple, even though you're a teenager, and put everything you have in Apple, and you will just be
go steal your dad's money too. Make him do it too.
Yeah, like whatever. Because I was a teenager, but I did get an allowance, and I was able to trade games at GameStop and shit like that. So there was a lot that I could have done to get money, and it wouldn't have been a lot, but it would have been enough to be very comfortable right now, or at least in like 2020, 2021, whenever Apple got like really, really high.
It's pretty nuts. I mean, Apple pre-iPod Apple was like not doing great.
Yes.
Like,
so that's the perfect
before
time,
the
right?
iPod. Before the iPod, Apple was like, I don't know. They just obviously they weren't a dead company. But they weren't what they are now. And there's a lot more arguments about just various stuff. There's not enough time to get into all of it. But the iPod came out and that kind of changed everything, and they really blew up. But then even then the iPod Touch, which transitioned into the iPhone, happened, which then was another explosion, because it was like the iPod and then like the iPod Nano, and then like the Zune came out and like tried to compete, and then like the iPod Video was like in that short period of time they made these crazy leaps. It was like iPod Nano.
It
Video,
was a short amount of time too. When you think
then
about
the iPod Touch, and then the
it's like
fucking
a 5-year
iPhone.
period.
And
iPhone is 07, I think. So
from there, they've just been on an absolute fucking upswing. Yeah,
the craziest upswing in history, I think, for any company. So, I mean, they are right now, they're over $2 trillion in valuation. I think they're going to cross $3 trillion in the next, God even knows how long it'll take. But yeah, so I could do that with the Attack Titans powers, and that is very, very broken. I just saw the Flash movie twice when it came out, a little over a month ago, I want to say that it was. And I enjoyed it a lot, but one of the things about the Flash, and pretty much everyone who knows about the Flash knows this thing, and this is not necessarily about the movie, but even from what I know about in the comics, whenever he tries to go back and change things, like physically himself, the current version of him goes back in the past by time travel, by running fast. Whenever he tries to do that, it just fucks things up really, really bad. And I've seen that happen with other mediums, not just the Flash, like pretty much everything where somebody can time travel or try to change events, the butterfly effect, stuff like that. Things just turn out really, really bad. And to the point where like shows like Family Guy and The Simpsons, they make fun of it. Like it'll be go back in time, and the only thing they'll do is kill a fly or a mosquito that landed on them, that in the original history, the mosquito got a chance to bite them. But then they killed this mosquito when they went back. And when they come back to the future, when they come back to the present, like where they are from, the world will be post-apocalyptic. it'll be like literally all you did was kill a mosquito. Like all you did was kill a mosquito. I didn't do anything. Like, you killed a mosquito, didn't you? Like, yeah. Well, that mosquito was the mosquito that was going to get eaten by this animal, and this animal was then going to eat this, and it's just like snowball effect, butterfly effect. So I'm afraid, because of the way Hollywood or just other mediums of media have showed me what happens if you change things. There are people that I would definitely want to save in the past, like family or friends or whatever. There are people that I would definitely want to save, but I don't know the effects of it. And I'd be scared to like ruin the time-space continuum or whatever by changing shit. So I don't know. It's hard to say I wouldn't know. There was an episode where we did hypotheticals, and it got really deep. And I
think that's where this is inspired from, right?
It does seem like that, yeah. Because I remember I was asked a question, well, both of us were asked a question about like what powers we could have. And I said time travel. And I said I would use it with the intent of going back and having a conversation with somebody that I lost. And it got like very deep, obviously, because how could it not with a topic like that, or specifically with a power like that when I'm giving that kind of answer? But that's what I would use it for, selfishly, because I do want to have another conversation with this person. I just want to like talk to them, hold them one more time, and just tell them about how my life turned out and how I know how proud they would be of me and all that stuff. So yeah, I guess selfishly, I would actually use my powers to go back and change things, despite the fact that media has told me that that's not a good idea. But I don't think I'll be able to resist. I really don't.
Yeah, I mean, if you actually did have the power, I mean, why wouldn't you? You have to, like, if you had the power, you're not going to have the power and then go, well, I'm not going to use it.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to try to use it. I think everything you said about Aaron is, true, and everything they said. And specifically on Aaron's powers, there's a lot I want to talk about there. But
real quick, I can't see you right now.
Really? Stupid.
There we go. I swear
they decide, yeah, but can you still see me?
I see you right now, yeah.
I literally nothing's different. Okay. Because I wanted to have the email up so I could look at it too.
Oh, okay.
And then anyway, it doesn't matter.
You have two screens, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay.
but just sometimes Discord likes to be Discord.
Yeah, I have no idea what
Um,
makes it minimize a stream or like say, well, not minimize it, say it's paused. I have no idea what triggers that.
yeah, it's a rant. But anyway, yeah. The Aaron stuff is really interesting. There's stuff I've thought about Aaron and Attack on Titan's powers a lot. But my full opinions on it, I don't want to go over until I see the conclusion to
Yeah,
Attack on
because we
Titan.
don't really know exactly how everything is playing out yet.
Yeah, so I'm gonna save some of that, but I just want to say, like, I do think it's really cool and interesting the idea of him sending memories back and manipulating time by sending memories back, and how many possible future Aaron has seen because of that, and how many, like, we talked about this in one of our Attack on Titan episodes, but I wonder how many futures has Aaron seen, and like the Aaron we're watching now. Like, obviously, we're watching like the final timeline or the final attempt at what is happening, because it's the story we're watching.
Yeah.
Which could just be like the second timeline, or it could be like the 200th. Like, we don't fully know, and there's I don't know. There's a lot of interesting thing that goes into all that. And what he's trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I still wonder if we're on a loop, right? Because when he made it to the Founding Titan that one episode, he said, "You've been waiting this whole time for someone, for anyone." And there was, it was to you from 2,000 years ago and from you 2,000 years ago. So there's like two different episodes, episode 1 and that episode that they aired a while ago now. But when he finally made it to her and he hugged her and she was crying, it was like, I've been waiting for you to get here. But in order to get here, I wonder if he had to replay the events over and over and over and over again until finally they got to the conclusion that that Aaron actually wanted, that the Founding Titan actually wanted, that
like, I think, especially when you look at where Aaron, I think he's seen his mom die now fucking hundreds of times.
Like,
you know what I mean?
Like, the dread in that man's face. Yes, I agree with you 100%.
So it is very interesting. And but that said, right, a lot of times when we see these time travel powers and like kind of the nihilism that can come from them and like our opinion of them, it does come from media. And a lot of times we're watching like these grand stories unfold, like The Flash, where he's this extreme superhero that does all this stuff, and Attack on Titan. If you just take normal life, if everything in the world is completely normal, but for whatever reason you have control over time, I don't think those dire consequences would really happen.
I agree.
Like, if you sent a memory, if like you talked to your 2011 self and you were like, you convinced him to buy Bitcoin, or to your 2005 self and convinced him to buy Apple, I don't think the world is going to go into an apocalypse. You'll just be rich. Now, maybe, I guess it's possible that you'll be rich and then in that you become a selfish person or something. I don't know.
Right. And maybe maybe I could call some terror or some destruction, but not to the point where I come back to a post-apocalyptic world that looks like the fucking Hunger Games, right?
I think for the most part, and then like it kind of depends on how you use it. Depends on who uses it. I like to think I'm fairly level-headed. I'm certainly more level-headed than I used to be.
Yeah, same.
And I like to think that, like, even if I had full control over time, I'm not gonna use it to create like an Epstein Island.
Oh God.
I'm just gonna make it so that I'm not hungry anymore. That's kind of it.
Yeah. Kenny has very basic needs and wants and stuff. So yeah, I agree that the more I think about it, and I haven't really thought about it much outside of the last time we talked about this, but I guess I'm with you. I don't think that me going back and making myself filthy rich is going to be the end of the world. The media, every time you see The Flash or any of those comics or any type of anime with time travel and it just destroys everything, it's kind of like a warning to people. It's like a just in case situation. Just in case somebody does discover it. Hey, be careful because you could ruin the fabric of reality. It's always that, like a cautionary tale, but it doesn't mean that shit is true at all, because no one has actually time traveled as far as we know. So it's more of a cautionary thing. But if I'm thinking logically, why would me going back and having a conversation with someone that I lost, why would that affect the whole world in a sense that it now becomes post-apocalyptic, right? Like, that's
a bunch of people made money on Dogecoin, right? If I decided there was one more person that made money on Dogecoin, like, the world's not going to end.
If anything, I might get myself killed by becoming a crypto billionaire, because if you guys been following the news this year, they've been getting off. And it's kind of blatant to me that, like, someone is very clearly offing all the crypto billionaires. Multiple of them have been found in what appears to be either suicides or like all kinds of wild shit that I just don't believe is happening around the same time. There was four of them in like a month and a half. If you remember, there was just like four crypto billionaire people who just died. And then the guy who made Cash App or whatever, he also died like last month. And then they announced Fed Now, which is the government's version of Cash App. So it's just like a lot of stuff is happening in terms of currency. Maybe I'll just end up going back, making myself filthy rich right now, but then I get myself killed. And that's the cautionary tale right there. It's kind of like that one Death Note, the Death Note one shot that he did a couple of years ago that had Donald Trump in it. Did you see that, Kenny? Did you read that?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's fucking awesome.
I didn't want to spoil it if you didn't, but yeah, at the end of it, obviously he used the Death Note, so you know what the ending is, right? Like you know, without me saying, you know what the ending is, because the kid in that one shot used the Death Note. So as I'm reading it, I was like, oh man, this is awesome. I like this kid. I like the story. I like what's happening with the Death Note. I like that Nier's in it and all this other stuff and Donald Trump. And then the way it ends, I was like, that's actually brilliant. Like the ending was very, very well done. To me anyway, but I'm also a fanboy, so take it with a grain of salt, take it with some bias.
It was great.
I can't wait till they actually animate that. But my point is like, yeah, it probably would be that. Like I think that's what would happen to me. I would become filthy fucking rich. And then it's like, oh, well, now instead of living your life that you were, where you were going to become progressively more wealthy from your content creation and podcast, you just become instantly rich, like in a second to your present self, you do anyway. The younger version of you has to go through like the rigmarole of watching Bitcoin go up to 66,000 a coin. But the version of you now just wakes up and you're like, oh shit, I'm living in Beverly Hills next to Kylie Jenner. And then I get fucking murdered that night because I'm a crypto billionaire. So it could be a bad thing in that way.
It could be. But
okay, yeah.
But yeah, I think overall, I think it's very interesting. Like I said in that previous episode, which I think this listener letter is based on, time powers would be fucking awesome, because I think my initial answer was really simple, is like pure immortality. And then if time powers means that you can also control your age, so you can stop yourself from aging, to make yourself immortal. And then I talked about how I just don't want to die. It's really that simple. And
I'm with
to
you
the
on
point
that,
where the entire, like, if the Earth exploded and like all that was left was space, I would still want to be alive and just like floating in space.
Really?
Yeah. I'm completely okay with floating in space.
Well, eventually
forever.
you'd come across another sentient planet.
Eventually I'd find something to do.
Yeah, eventually, yes. Eventually you'd come across another intelligent life form and some kind of planetary system that you could exist on for another several million years or whatever, until the sun explodes again and wipes out everything that you know.
And I'd find another one, because like, and people say like eventually you'd run out of things to do, you'd get bored, or like the grief and the pain of watching all these people die. And like, I think all of that is somewhat true, but I also think, unfortunately and sadly, time does heal all wounds in a way. It's a good and bad thing. But I think I said this in that episode, but like when your mom dies, now my mom hasn't died yet, but I've watched people in my life whose moms have died, and it's a horrible thing. But the day it happens is the worst day of it. And then every day after that sucks, but it gets a little bit better. And 20 years from now, when you think about your mom, you're going to laugh and smile and then cry, and it's still going to suck, but like, it's not going to be as bad as the day it happened. And a million years later, I don't know. If you're still alive, somebody's still creating new video games or something. You know what I mean?
I have a question, Kenny. Have you ever seen Invincible?
No, but that is at a pretty high on my list of things, because I had Invincible and The Boys kind of next to each other and things I need to watch in terms of superhero related content. And so, as everybody knows, we've seen The Boys and we did an episode on it. And now that I know that Invincible's next season is either out or coming out, I want to watch season 1 of Invincible and then, like, you know,
let's do the
new season so we can do the podcast on it.
So we should do a podcast on season 1, because I think it's better for us and our listeners to just split them up, because season 1 has enough content. I agree. Season 1 has enough content to talk about. But there is a concept about people like the Homelanders of the world, the Supermans of the world, that they talk about in Invincible. And I mean, I'm like, this isn't a spoiler or anything like that, because the main character is just he's a Superman. And the same thing is like Homelander. And you know Superman, that Superman does not age the way humans do. But one of the concepts they say specifically in Invincible that I love is how, and you basically just said it. So the day your mom dies is going to be one of the worst days of your life, if not the actual worst day of your life.
Yep.
But if you live a million years, her existence in your million-year life is so small that it will actually not mean nearly as much over the course of a million years. I know that sounds crazy to say from a human perspective. If you can only think with your human brain right now and can't remove yourself out of it.
Because we think in the timeline of at best 100 years.
Correct.
Most people don't live to be 100, but we think in the time of at best 100 years. And if you are lucky, your mom gets to be in your life until you're 50-ish. So like almost half of your life, she's in your life.
Yes. But if your life is a million years, your mom is basically the equivalent, actually less than, but I'll just say this to make it, your mom is kind of the equivalent of having a puppy. Like,
which sounds horrible to say.
It sounds awful.
If you just like take the emotion out of it and think about the concept of time, like it makes sense.
Yeah, like if you think about how you in your life, if you're a dog owner, you've probably had multiple dogs, depending on how old you are, and you know that dogs last you like 15 years max, right? Like dogs are like a 15-year thing, and the day they die is terrible and it feels awful. But then you get a new one, and eventually, when you're super, super, super old, like the dog you had as a kid it's just a pet that you had. It's not the biggest thing in your life and you lost it and you never got over it. Like, no, it was just a pet that you once had, because our lifespan is much longer than that of a dog's. So that concept, you kind of alluded to it when you said like eventually I'll get over it, without saying blatantly I'll get over it, but like you kind of just will. Like your mom died a million years ago. You kind of be like, yeah, I mean, I had a mom a million years ago and I loved her dearly. But that was a million years ago, you know? Like, So interesting.
It is really interesting because I've had this conversation with a couple of different people, and that's kind of my take on it. We just talked about, and I don't want to die. So here's the thing. Some people believe in God and heaven and all that other stuff. I don't. So I think when I die, I simply don't. I think when I die, it's the same as before I was born.
Yeah.
I just don't exist. And to some people, that's comforting because there's nothing to worry about because you won't exist or have a consciousness to worry or feel anything. To me, that's like the most terrifying thing I've ever heard in my entire life. And that's what I think happens. So if I could just live forever, I'd be happy.
Yeah. The older I get, the more I think about my mortality. And it is a little scary knowing that everyone is going to die, including myself. And like, I personally, now that I'm officially getting to the age where like, oh shit, there's not that much more of this left, right? Like it's kind of sad, really. I don't want to bring everyone down listening to this, but the reality is setting in that one day I will be dead. And that is unsettling because for so long, I never really had to consider that because I was so young. And when you're young, you feel like death is the furthest thing from you. You're like, it's so far away. I don't have to even think about it. When you're a teenager, the last thing you're thinking about is being old and dying. Okay. And then once you start getting older and you start having to go to the doctors more and things start aching a lot more and you start to come down with different illnesses and stuff like that, and you see other people just actually passing away in your life, you're like, well, shit. Like, I do wish I had some control over time.
You just hear story, like, I'm in my 30s, like, people just have heart attacks and die.
They do.
Like it just happens.
Yeah,
like I could have prostate cancer right now. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, you have no idea what's dormant in your body. But anyway, let's get off that. Let's go to the next section of this listener letter. So next section is entitled Okabe. So now with Okabe Rintaro, and this is the main character from Steins Gate, he transfers his conscience to a different version of himself mostly. Either way, he is on the ground doing things. Even with the D-mails, sending emails, text to the past, that's what a D-mail is. He ceases to be there when he sends one because nothing can change in isolation. Imagine that every time Grisha killed the royal family that he lost the key to the basement. But in order to keep the key, you can't kill the family. He must start over and observe his current whereabouts to see what has changed, then has to go back himself to change it again. He was trying to do everything and was constantly losing everything he was trying to protect. He's lived through terrible futures. He eventually became afraid of traveling and changing time. He believes the world is punishing him for trying to manipulate it. He lets his friend die and he starts going to therapy. In both ways, they are grinding time for results. With Eren, he had to grill his dad hard. He left no other path for himself. His friends are the ones who are free to change the world. They could just enjoy surviving, but only because Eren made himself the enemy. Armin and them, in my head, can't beat Marley like that or even work with Peak at all. It's the one scenario where the enemy is one person and not a huge army or a founding titan at metagames. Eren is not free, but he's doing his best. He gets to make conservative pushes to one person in the past and try to affect the future, small changes that lead somewhere. I'm assuming he wants the best for as many people he cares about as possible. Okabe changed time dynamically, erasing people or districts in Akihabara, which is actually somewhere I'm going in a couple weeks. This is I'll be going to Japan, and I just looked up that as the anime technology district. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but Akihabara. He could really shake things up, but it wasn't what he wanted, and the causality between the changes and what it cost starts to hit him, and he had to realize the purpose of specific events to backtrack to a normal summer. What both of them have in common, whether or not they cause significant change to everything or control change to some things, is that they lost purpose and meaning in all action and agency they had. In different ways, I'd say, but essentially, Eren became a slave to himself rather than anyone, or you could see it as being a slave to paradise. He almost lets a kid get beat up in the alley because he knew he would die later by Eren's hand. I remember that scene where he thought, like, what's the point of even saving this kid? Why would I beat these thugs up if I'm going to kill this kid? And I already know that. I know the future. I'm going to step on this kid and crush him. So it is an interesting thing to think about. And Eren was he was tormented by that.
Yeah.
Okabe had to pick. Go ahead.
I just want to say that kid's teeth like flew out of his
I'll
head.
never forget that. That was one of the most brutal things I've seen. And Attack on Titan is like the HBO of anime. It is rare nowadays to see anime that's extremely brutal like that. Like I've seen some very brutal anime in the past, especially like the 90s and stuff like that. But there's a lot more censorship, I feel like, nowadays. And I just feel like Attack on Titan, they bypassed a lot of censoring things. Yeah. Some of the shit they show is just so barbaric. But anyways, Okabe had to pick between two people, and he did. He wants to enjoy his time with the one he chose, but gets reminded of the person he left behind constantly. It causes him to drift from his friends because no one else knows his despair. He'll be hanging out in a normal time, and he can't enjoy it because he knows it costs him something that he didn't want to pay. He wants both friends. There are moments that you will want to change, and you could only observe or make things change so much. If you turn up, you likely would never revisit that time again because it's no longer the same span of events. It's weird too, if things aren't meant to happen, the arbitrary line between the boundaries of relevant and irrelevant events is not decided, nor does it exist. We can't choose what is significant. It simply is that because it holds that quality. The world is shaped by billions of actions and thoughts. If no one event holds any particular relevance to each other or the outcome, what can one person really do without resorting to something terrible? People think they regret the past, but they don't know how to manipulate time yet. That would be even more crushing despair. So I guess the second part of this, the Okabe thing, is talking about just his despair with attempting to save a friend and then not being able to really do that without losing another person. And that was kind of the point of Steins Gate.
Steins Gate was, if anybody's listening to this and haven't seen it yet, I definitely recommend watching it. Steins Gate's really fucking cool. I'm gonna have to rewatch it one day because I would like to do a podcast on it. But yeah, I do think you could find yourself in despair where or you could find yourself almost feeling without agency if you can control time and like change anything you want as you go back. It starts to feel like, what's the point of doing anything? And if any little thing goes wrong, it's like if you're playing a video game, right? Yeah. And you save the game before you do something and you just keep reloading the save until it does exactly what you want it to do. I could see your life kind of becoming that, where like, oh, I go to the store and, oh man, this hoagie wasn't that good. Rewind time. I go to this store instead. And then it's like, eventually there's so many little tiny annoyances or nuances that you feel like, oh, there's no reason why I couldn't just change that. And like, you become stuck between like you have infinite agency. So essentially you end up having no agency because you can change everything and everything can be better in some small way. And it's like, why would I let anything go? And it's like something else that we're having. Like I know a lot of other gamers feel this. The way it is now, I have access to so many video games that I play less video games because there's so many to play and there's so many that I want to play at the same time. I'll look at my Steam library and then I'll just end up not playing any of them because it's like, which one do I want to play? And there's just so fucking many of them. And it's like, how do you start any of them and stuff like that? And same with movies and everything. Good.
I wanted to take this into a direction as well about video games because I used to use Game Shark as a kid on certain games or Action Replay, whatever you want to call it. But basically it was a cheating device that allowed you to manipulate the game. You get infinite money. You could unlock all items at the beginning of the game. You could do all these crazy things, right? Make your characters invincible. So I would play a Final Fantasy game like Final Fantasy IX, and I would start the game with all items. Like there was a Game Shark code that you'd have that literally you started the game, you had every weapon and every single item in the game times 99. Now what this did, I already played and beat Final Fantasy IX by the time I got Action Replay for Final Fantasy IX. But when I went back and tried to replay it with the action replay, I played probably 8 hours of it and got so outrageously bored that I never played it again.
Yeah.
And the reason why I got bored and the reason why I loved it the first time but not the second time with action replay was because there were no stakes. Every time anything could possibly go wrong, I can just change the outcome severely. Yep. Or I don't even have to change the outcome because the bosses and the battles don't mean anything. In fact, they're inconveniences. Like getting into a random encounter is a nuisance to the point where then I got so bothered that I turned off random encounters. So now,
now you're not playing the game anymore, like at all. Like you're literally not playing the game. Like you got all of the items, and now like all of these items, like if you got them normally, they make you stronger and better at the game.
And you're so happy to get a new sword.
Yeah, but now you have everything that makes the game better, and now you're like, I don't want to play the game. I'm gonna turn the game off.
I played for about 8 hours, and I was like, yo, there's nothing to do. Like I'm going through the story and reading the chat because there's just a lot of talking. That's it. There's chat, there's cutscenes. Then you're forced into a boss battle because those are unskippable. You're forced into a boss battle. You hit the boss one time, they die. Then you go to another cutscene. Then you walk around more, no random encounters. And then you realize, like, wait, this isn't, like Chitty said, this isn't a game. So in real life, let's try to relate this to real life. So there are times when I'll call an Uber. I'll be leaving Reading Terminal. Now, Reading Terminal is really annoying because despite how amazing all the food is and all the markets are and stuff like that within it, when it's time to leave or just navigate that place, it's so crowded that it's hard to leave from it because it's in Center City. There's tons of people. There's always events in the convention center across the street. So when you try to leave and you call an Uber, oftentimes the Uber will get caught in traffic. They'll cancel. They'll get very close after you waited 10 minutes and they'll cancel. They'll drive past you, then they'll cancel. All of these things. And that is a part of my life's experience. When I call an Uber, I walk away from Reading Terminal now to not have that experience. But imagine if, like, every time I have a minor inconvenience, I could just rewind time and then just do something completely different to get a different outcome. So I'm never actually experiencing any inconveniences, but I'm also not experiencing just what it's like to live.
Yeah. So I could definitely see that. That could be like, that could make things feel like that despair that this listener letter is talking about, that if you have that full control over time, eventually, like it'll be kind of like having a game shark. And then will that rob life of its meaning? I guess it depends on, I guess it just really depends on what you would actually end up doing with it. I wanted to talk about your game shark example real quick.
Yeah.
Another again. God, is it back up?
Yeah, it is.
Another example is when Monster Hunter Rise came out on PC. A bunch of people that I wanted to play Monster Hunter Rise with got it on PC, and they knew I, played 1,000 hours of it, and they were like, "Hey, get it on PC, like we'll play." And I was like, "No, like I played it for 1,000 hours. I got all of this stuff. I worked really hard to get all this stuff.
Your file, your character is yours."
Yeah, and I worked very fucking hard for it and put a lot of time into it, and like it has a lot of meaning. If I turn on the game right now and I go on a hunt, like it's my fucking stuff and whatever. So anyway. It's just I don't want to do all of that again. Not for the same game. I'll do it on the next Monster Hunter. Sure. But I don't want to do it on the exact same game. But a lot of people are saying like, yeah, but you can just use a save editor to give you all of your stuff that you had on Switch. And there's a very real I told them, I was like, I'm not doing that because that's going to rob all of my agency from the game. Because if I can do that and I can really perfectly recreate my Switch save file, let's say, I'm going to go hunt of Rathalos for something, and in the back of my head I'm going to go, what's the point in me killing this Rathalos when I can just put a Rathalos ruby in my game? And it's going to completely kill the agency and want to hunt a Rathalos.
I haven't played a modded Monster Hunter game yet, actually. Like every Monster Hunter game, I've played Monster Hunter on PSP, I've played it on the 3DS, new 3DS, whatever. I've played it on the Switch now, and I've played it on PS4, and all of the ones that I've played, they've all just been like, this is the game. I've usually, in the past, I had to play the Japanese version with the English patch in it, so it's modded that way. But me and Medina, we never had like an infinite item type of thing. In fact, to get Mega Juice, because that was an item in the old games that gave you infinite stamina, we just did the classic go into the gathering hall. I send you all the Mega Juice in my box, then I turn my game off without saving, then I turn it back on, then I do it again, then you do it back to me, and now we both have like 500 Mega Juice. Now he needed it more than me because he uses the bow, and the bow in that game needed Mega Juice to play. Like literally. So he needed a lot of Mega Juice, but I used all the weapons. So it was fine for me. But that was our way of like, okay, you could multiply these items, but we didn't actually have anything that could go. Because obviously Medina, especially the kind of person he is, he'd be like, well, why do a half measure, right? Like, why not just literally, if I could multiply my mega juice with some kind of code thing, like some kind of system, I'm just gonna give myself 9 million of it and never have to worry about it again, because that's the kind of person that he is.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm not, that's not a dig at him, but like if we're just gonna send each other the shit back and forth in the gathering hub, like why, what's the difference at that point besides wasting, because you're basically just like wasting time if you could just do it faster. So I haven't played a modded Monster Hunter game, but every time I think about it, I'm like, if you're not modding for just cosmetics, because I would totally mod my, like when I play the next Monster Hunter on PC or whatever I played on, if I can mod cosmetically things like with my character, if I want to have the Master Sword as my sword and shield, and I want to look like Link from, if I want to like Fierce Deity Link, like I'll do that. But if it comes down to giving myself everything in the game, then like that takes away the point of the game. It takes away the point of existing. Like, what is the point of playing it? So yeah, it takes away all the agency of the game. And there's a slippery slope, like Kenny said. He could recreate his Switch file, and you could give yourself not a single zenny more than what you actually have right now. You give yourself the same research level, the same items, the same weapons and armor, and your cats, and everything could be exactly the same. And it would probably take you a shit ton of time to do it, but you could absolutely recreate down to the fucking gunpowder in your box exactly what you had. But then in the back of your mind, it's like, what stopped me from just getting a mantle when I need a mantle and it's taking me an hour to get a mantle, right? Like, in fact, like, it might even change your perception of that. Like, if normally when I'm grinding for an item, right, like let's say I need a mantle from a Rathalos and it's been an hour and we hunted it 10 times, and I'm starting to get a little sad because you guys are getting mantles, I'm not getting it. I'm the only one who actually needs it, and I feel bad having you guys run this mission over and over and over again. But you know how friends are. Friends are like, no, bro, let's just keep doing it until you get it. Like, I don't have shit else to do. We're gonna fight this Rathalos until you get a mantle, and we fight it for an hour and a half, and I eventually get it. If I've already had the ability to just give myself a mantle, in the back of my mind, it'll always be like, oh my God, this is a fucking waste of time. You know what? I'm just going to give myself the mantle and we can just move on.
Yeah. That's exactly what would happen. It would just, and that's why I was like, I cannot do that on the PC version. Now I could play the PC version, but if I did, I'm not going to. But the point, like when I play Monster Hunter World on PC, whenever that happens, I know it exists out there that I could mod it and like add whatever I want to it. I'm not going to do that though, and I want to just enjoy the game for what the experience is. Because I know if you do it one time, if you give yourself one fucking Rathalos ruby, every single time you're hunting a monster, you're gonna say, well, why not just give myself the thing? I'm grinding for this thing. I'm wasting 6 hours. I got to be in work in the morning. I'm just going to edit my save and give myself. It's just one mantle. It's not a big deal, and that's going to happen every single time. It's going to be terrible.
Okay, so let's move on after that. So that was from LK Mazur 112. There's another listener letter, but it's not actually a listener letter. It's just kind of like a very nice thing to say. So they said to us, and the same day that the other letter was from, I think. It says, I wanted to express more how much I enjoy your podcast. You guys are the best, absolutely stimulating content. I like listening to y'all talk about Demon Slayer more than watching it, if you can believe that. And to that, I say, thank you so much. But Demon Slayer is absolutely crack, especially visually. And I get what you're saying. Like, you love hearing us talk about it. That is a very high compliment, though, to say that you like us talking about it more than you like watching it. But that could also be because the last season was kind of mid. So maybe.
See, this is what I was going to say. You just went there. I was going to say, I feel so bad sometimes when I talk about certain, because I feel like most of the time we talk about things, we're usually praising it. We'll nitpick some things.
Yes.
Like most of the things we talk about, we praise. And especially that last Demon Slayer episode we did on season 3, sometimes when I think about it, I do feel bad because I don't ever want to be I don't ever want to take somebody's happiness from them. Like if somebody watched season 3 and they loved it, I don't want to be like a blemish on that. And I know sometimes that can happen. Sometimes you like, I remember one time, I don't remember what we were talking about, but we were talking about something. And I don't remember what it was on the podcast. And at the time I still lived with my little brother and he heard me dogging this thing. I can't remember what it was. And he was like so sad about it. He was like so sad that I didn't like it because I watched it with him.
I never want to do that to people too. Like the whole thing where you kind of you take something that someone likes and you shit on it so much that they are kind of feeling how unpleasant it is to just be around your energy in that moment.
Yeah. And I don't ever want to do that. So I hope, for the most part, I think we try to make it fun. I hope when I dog on something like Demon Slayer or when we eventually do the Star Wars episode and I rip it a new one, I hope that that doesn't ruin any of
I hope
your
that it's more
experience.
entertaining than just bitter,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
there's tones to things. And I think you do a really good job, better than I do anyway. Probably because I don't care to, but you do a good job. You do a good job of being a lot funnier with your takes on something being bad than I do. When something is bad to me, I can be shrewd
Yeah,
about
you're
it.
just mean. You're
Yeah,
just mean.
exactly. I'm just fucking mean about it. Like, this is trash. And there isn't really anything. The thing is, some people find that type of thing funny,
Yeah,
even though
yeah.
in the moment I'm not laughing and I'm not being funny. But some people find that to be entertaining. Like, when I'm mean on stream, or when me and Stango do Mastering the People, and our opponent is just being absolutely absurd, and I start raging out, or the deck we're playing is terrible and I start raging out, people find that shit hilarious. And those are
Yeah.
some of the best performing videos on the channel, because people like seeing other people's anger. But then at the same time, I also know the other effect of it, where somebody can shit on something so bad that it makes you like, well, damn, like, is something wrong with me for liking this? Or you just sucked all the energy out of the room with your negative take on something. So I don't want to be that. I never want to be a killjoy, but I do want to be honest. I don't want to be one of those people that just lies. I don't want to be one of those people that just lies to you and also makes it seem like something is hype or really good because the internet says that it's hype or really good. Because that's what a lot of channels and content creators do. They're like, dear God, yo, did you see that? Nezuko's like, I'm not going to do that. Like, if I don't feel that way, I'm not going to, I can't fake it. And I think that that's one of the things about both of us, is that we're not about to fake the funk. We got on this podcast about Demon Slayer. We didn't really even like talk before that episode about season 3. We got on here and we're both smiling, and just like, it came out that we both thought it was mid without us having to say going into it, like, yo, did you think it was mid? Because I'm about to rip it a new one. Like, oh yeah, like, we didn't do that.
We didn't rehearse it. We kind of just went in, and
we didn't have a powwow.
We both kind of felt the same way. And it's like, at the moment, it was fun, and I was happy that we both felt the same way, because it made the conversation easier and funner. But in hindsight, not that this is going to change anything. If I watch something else that makes me feel like, it's going to be the same thing. But the point is, I just hope that I never ruin it for someone else. I'm not going to change my opinion on anything or sugarcoat my opinion on it.
Yep.
But with that being said, I don't ever want to be the guy that ruin it for somebody else.
Yep, I feel the same way. All right, let's move on to another listener letter. So this one comes from Austin Cruz, and this is in regards to when we talked about going into time, and I believe Scott Page's amazing rule. So if you don't remember, I'll give some context. Scott Page, who was a friend of the podcast and has also been on it, one of our best episodes ever, by the way. Scott said that for time, he thinks that the rule should be you get 60 minutes around, so everybody has 60 minutes. And at the end of 60 minutes, if there's no winner, both players lose the game. You just lose the whole round. You both get a loss. There's no like debating. There's no check life points. There's no end of phase, no end of turn. At 60 minutes, after 60 minutes, the buzzer goes off. If you're still playing, you both lose. That is Scott Page's time rules. I think those rules are actually fantastic, because there's no way in hell you can convince me that your match takes longer than an hour to conclude and you guys don't have a winner. I'm not here for it. So that will cut down on people who side deck burn cards. It will cut down on people intentionally stalling for time and doing all kinds of cheesy things where they like start game 3 off going first and you don't get a turn because they burned you or they increased their life points. A lot of that shit goes away because there's no incentive to slow play. In fact, I think that everyone would speed up because that's the nature of what would happen if everybody just lost after 60 minutes. So Austin says, I think the idea of a double game loss to prevent going into time is a great idea. However, I still think you should be given until end of turn. Some decks just have crazy lengthy combos, even if you know what you're doing. I personally don't put time cards in normally, mostly because I don't like having to worry about going into time. The only times I really go into it anymore is if I'm having a really intense match and don't even think to look at the time. It's definitely a necessary evil for organized play, but I feel a double loss and until end of turn is a good direction. Question: if you could pick one deck to make it all the same rarity, what deck and rarity would you guys pick? Any deck, any format. I will go first with that rarity part. If I could pick any deck to have all the same rarity, any deck, any format, this is me not thinking of monetary gain or anything like that, even though I don't think it matters which one you pick, because some of the cards would be one of ones, basically. You'd be the only one with this. Like, for example, if I chose Frogs, Subtitoad, I can make an ulti, and I will be the only one with 3 ulti Subtitoads in the world. Anyways, I'm not going to go with value necessarily, so my answer has nothing to do with value or what I could gain from it monetarily wise. It's going to go based off of what I think makes the most sense for me right now. I would get an all ultimate rare version of my Frog deck. That is what I would choose. I would get the entire Frog deck, all ultimate rare, despite the fact that like Ryza and Caius and that Stalos and Mobius and all the Monarchs, they basically come ulti already, all the playable ones anyway. And like Brain Control's already ulti. And a lot of the cards in the deck, I'm basically saying they're already ulti, right? And Enemy Control is coming out ulti in October. Konami's still doing that thing where they release Edison cards in a sly way. So Enemy Control is coming out ulti in October. So I wouldn't necessarily get that much value out of it as many other people because Battle Fader is already ulti, Swap Frog's already ulti, and the list goes on. But because I don't own like ulti Absolute Zero, for example, like that's not a thing. That's not even like a thing that's out. But because I don't own those cards, and I would love to play Edison with an all ulti deck. That's the format of Yu-Gi-Oh that I play for the foreseeable future. That's just what I'm going to be playing for a while in terms of Yu-Gi-Oh. Like I don't think I'm going to switch formats anytime soon. So what makes sense for me right now is an ulti Edison deck. And I could say Black Wings because that would be insane because the Black Wing cards do not come ultimate at all. Like there's pretty much none of the cards in the Black Wing deck besides like Dark Arm and Value, I think. That's like it's in terms of ultimate rares. So I'd probably get way more value if I chose Black Wings, but I just like the Frog deck so much that I'd rather just have all of those cards. Every card in my Frog deck would just be ultimate rare. And that would be amazing. Like that's my choice.
For me, it's kind of weird, but I think of it as like, so basically the question is like you have to have the entire deck and it has to all be the same rarity.
Correct.
In that regard, and I know people are going to think this is crazy, but I think like in that regard, I would just want them to be common. If I had to pick something else, it would probably be super rare because I really like super rare.
So clean.
Yeah, I like super. I think super rare is my favorite one.
It's so clean.
Yeah, I like super a lot. But the reason why I say common is because of this. There's something I personally like, and maybe other people like this too, but rarities have like a value to me in that like if I have my deck, right? I have certain cards if they come in certain rarities, and I'm like really caring about building it that way. I want to put certain cards to be in certain rarities. Like I want all of my Monarchs to be the same rarity of whatever rarity I decide to do, whether it be ulti or super or whatever.
Right.
If one of my Monarchs isn't that rarity, I'm going to be annoyed. And so I'm going to have to go with something else. Like I have to get something. So the point that I'm getting to though, is if my entire deck is ulti, it just seems to me, it would be like visually extra. Like it would just kind of be, and like if I'm playing with it, hollow cards tend to like bend over time more like easier. So for me, it's like if I have to have this whole deck and they all have to be the same rarity, I would probably just pick common because that would be that would have the most longevity of the cards, and I would want it just wouldn't be so extra. Like if every single card was ulti, even my fucking Upstart Goblin,
yep,
kind of be annoyed because like there's. To me, it's like certain cards have a certain value to them. It's like I want Upstart Goblin to be common just because I want it to be common. Like it's cool to have a super rare one and all that other stuff, but you know what I mean? Like I like my extra deck, my Stardust Dragon. I want to be ulti. You know what I mean? Or like whatever. I don't want my Treeborn Frog to be ulti, like because it's like it just doesn't feel like it should. So I either want my deck to match where like I mentally put the rarities of what I think is cool, or if everything has to be the same, I'd probably just go with common.
Okay. And that's a totally reasonable answer. Like it's all subjective. I decided a long time ago, probably back in like 05 or something, maybe 06, that Ultimate Rare for me was my favorite thing to see visually. Especially back then, they were very detailed. Sacred Phoenix of Nephthys, ulti, you could feel it.
It's wild. Yeah, it's fucking wild.
Yeah, some of those ultis back in the day. This is when rare cards used to come ulti too. Like if a card came rare, it also came ulti. So like the Koichi, which is the Battle Train Locomotive or whatever, that card came rare and then it came ulti. And the ulti versions just look so goddamn insane. Same thing with Horus, the Black Flame Dragon. Yep. Like, have you ever seen a level 8 Horus ulti? That shit,
I have.
Bro.
See, that's the thing. So that's the thing to me. Like when I play the game and I build my decks, I want my Horus to be ulti, my Horus level 8, but I don't want my Horus level 4 to be ulti. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if my Horus level 4 is ulti, it'll make my level 8 feel less special.
Okay.
And so that's why I just want to make sure everybody understands. I'm not saying they don't look cool. It's just that to me, when I have a card that's ulti, I want it to be ulti to have that specialness. And I don't want my Horus level 4 to be ulti because fuck him.
Oh shit. I actually packed the ulti Horus level 4 when I was younger, and it annoyed the fuck out of me because in my head I kept saying, damn, this could have been any of the other two, and this would have been worth so much more and it would have been so much cooler, but the first level looks like a pigeon. And even ulti, it doesn't look cool. So I was really annoyed about that. But I ended up getting an ultimate rare Horus level 8 years and years and years later. And I used to stare at it. It would be in the middle of my binder when you open my binder, it would be the first card in the middle on a 9 slot page. and I would just open it and stare at it because of how cool it fucking looked. Like that is one of the coolest looking ultimate rare cards in existence.
It's
so
awesome.
maybe one day I'll pick it back up. All right. So the next. Oh, would you
I was just going to say I had it in my Horus Jinzo deck, man.
Yeah.
I used to love that deck.
Okay. So the next listener letter comes from Austin. This one is on Hot Pot. So he says, first, I'd like to say it was great meeting you and everyone else I met from the Discord. So this is following Nationals. So me and Austin Cruz actually met at Nationals before round 1. And I would like to say that, Austin, you're probably a good luck charm to me because I ended up only losing once out of 9 rounds to Swiss. And one of the only outliers is that I met you. So, anyways, he says, on the Kiki Palmer situation, we know who Kiki Palmer is. Okay, so this is also dealing with that episode that we talked about Kiki Palmer and also Jonah Hill and his ex-girlfriend who was a surfer, and he gave her his boundaries, which some people were calling manipulation. So this is all based on that. He says, on a Kiki Palmer situation, we know who Kiki Palmer is. We refer to him as Kiki Palmer's boyfriend. I never understood the guys that get mad when they get a bad bitch, but complains when she gets checked out. I thought that's expected that she'll get checked out. I'd be more worried if she didn't. I'm definitely on Kenny's thought about knowing I'll probably get a kidney stone. And this is the second part of the letter. I'm definitely on Kenny's thought about knowing I'll probably get a kidney stone. I pretty much only drink soda. The only time I really drink water are at events, cons, etc., or I'm under certain influences. There was a time I even put Sweet and Low and Mountain Dew. I don't put down near as much as I used to, but I stay at a fairly healthy weight. Still considered underweight. Yeah, when I met you, Austin, you're definitely like you're a skinny guy. Like you and me. When I call myself a fat ass because I like to eat sweets and stuff like that, and you know I got a little bit of a stomach and all that. But like you are skinny, my guy. Anyways, he says my workout used to be going to play DDR on the extreme settings for hours at a time.
All right, real quick, Fraser, before you say anything else. My guy, you put more sugar in Mountain Dew.
Yeah, that's why.
Like a packet of Sweet and Low in Mountain. That is what you're definitely on some shit. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, that's wild. And Sweet and Low is an artificial sweetener, right? So
yeah.
Artificial sweeteners are known to be stronger than actual sugar. Like every time I've had artificial sweeteners, they're a little too much for me, and they have that chemical aftertaste too.
Yeah. That's something special. Yeah, there was a time when I definitely was on track to getting kidney stone. Luckily, I think I'm way off that track because all I drink now is water.
Yeah,
pretty much. But there was a time if I stayed on the track I was on, I'd have a kidney stone right now.
Yeah, I think so too. I thought you were going to be my one friend who got one because I never used to really see you drink water. So if I ever had a friend and I had to say like somebody put 10 of you in a circle and said point to one, well, the one that I know who drinks like Wawa iced tea every single time I've ever seen them drink anything was you. So I would just say you. But
I drank like a half gallon a day.
Yeah, but now knowing that, and I know that for years actually, you've been drinking a lot of water. Clearly, it's probably not going to happen now, I would think, because it's not hard to prevent it. Like if you just drink water like a real human, you will just prevent it from happening. But I get that some people genuinely just don't like water. It is a preference thing. Like granted, the body does need it, and there is water in everything else. But like some people just don't like the taste of water. And
I think it's an addiction thing though too, because
100%.
Because I think that like I've gone long enough now where I don't really crave but still sometimes like especially with iced tea. Still sometimes when I'm eating a meal, I go, man, I wish I had some iced tea with this. But I don't really crave the other drinks now. And when you first start only drinking water, whether by choice or by force, you end up you crave the other drinks. And you just have to force yourself to not do it for a month, 2 months, and then like you'll kind of be fine.
So something that has helped me a lot in getting through my sugar addiction and not drinking calories is I discovered sparkling water very recently. I want to say in the last year. And I never thought that I would like it because I used to try to drink it. Like LaCroix, for example, is one of them, bubbly. I used to try to drink those things and they tasted awful to me. And then I started finding flavors that are actually good. And it's so crazy that they're just water. Like it's actually just water. There are no calories, there's no sugar, there's nothing. The one that I do want anyone listening to this to try, and I also want Kenny to try it too, even if I have to like buy it myself. LaCroix lime tastes like Sprite. Like if you get a fresh can of LaCroix, the lime flavor, and you put it in the fridge, make sure that the can is freezing cold, and you crack that thing open and just start drinking it fast, it literally has all the taste and components of what you think of when you think of a Sprite. And it is so good.
I'll give it a try. I'm happy that it's working for you. But I know every time I've tried to taste those fucking things, I like go,
yeah, they are typically really fucking nasty. Like, it's not lost on me that LaCroix and like all drinks that are sparkling water, whatever flavored water, they tend to be awful. But I think that what's happening now is that because I only drink water, everything that I drink that's not water is very strong. So this flavored water to me is probably better than it would be if I was just a person who drinks Sprite or drinks Pepsi or whatever. Like when my taste buds were more attuned to that, I think that these things were way more awful to me. But now that I'm like pretty much just drinking water, which is bland to a degree, sparkling water actually tastes pretty good to me now. So yeah, the LaCroix Lime, I'm on Amazon right now because I actually want to order a case of it. And I think I'm gonna just send a case to your house as well. Because they're like they have a pack of 8, and it looks like it's like $4 for a pack of 8. So if I can, I'm gonna send you a pack of this, but I do want you to try this because this is something I was it's funny this listener letter came up. I was thinking about this literally the last time I had one. I was like, man, Kenny just said that he, primarily just drinks only water too now. And I was wondering if it's just me who maybe got into the sparkling water thing recently, or maybe other people might start liking it too. But
I know Ant drinks sparkling water. I've tried all the ones I've tried. I've hated.
Yes.
I was at Ant's house one time and he said similar thing to you. Like, I tried them and I hated them. And then he had like 1 or 2 flavors in his house. He was like, but these ones are really good. And I still just like, I don't know if I'm missing something, but I tasted it and it was like kind of just that. It was just really off-putting taste to me.
Yeah. They some of them are unpleasant. There was one of them that I never had Pledge, the actual cleaning product. I never ingested it, but if I had, I assume that this one, there was a LaCroix, I think it's limoncello. That shit smells and tastes like what I assume Pledge tastes like. So there's that. But yeah, I'm going to order, after this podcast, I'll get your address and I'll send you this lime one. I'm going to order myself one as well because I want to see Gary's. I want to hear Gary's thoughts on it too because Gary only drinks water as well. Gary's too cheap to buy anything else. And
that's right.
To a degree, like all of us are, like I don't buy, we talked about this before in the podcast, but I don't buy soda or juice in Philadelphia because you literally get taxed for buying soda or juice in Philadelphia. So, and I refuse. Like I fucking refuse.
It's bad.
So there's that.
It's real bad.
But yeah, sparkling water is pretty good. All right, let me get back to this. So on the topic of Keke Palmer and that whole situation about her boyfriend becoming jealous about like her being checked out by other men and her getting attention from other men. Yeah, I agree, Austin. It's a little ridiculous to get a girl as bad as Keke Palmer, especially a celebrity, an actress, a singer, a high profile person. Like, right, you get this person who the whole world, she has a fan base. She has millions of followers on Instagram and Twitter and stuff like that, right? You get this girl who's very pretty, and you like her because of these things. You like her because of her ambition. And then other people also think that she's attractive. Of course, that's just how humans work. And that bothers you. Like, I don't get how men get with these beautiful women and then want these women to like completely cover themselves up and be like nuns to the outside world. That's just crazy to me. Like when you got with her, you saw her in whatever she was wearing, which probably was a little revealing, maybe might have been like hugging her in the right places, her curves, her thighs, her butt, whatever attracted you to her physically. And there's nothing wrong with that. You're a man, right? Like that's just, we're coded that way. But like to then, get with the girl and get jealous or mad because other guys are checking her out or whatever is a bit ridiculous. And also to take things so far because Usher was singing to her at a concert. I'm like, come on, bro. Like, that shit's not going anywhere actually.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the night, she comes home to you, right? Like she's in your bed. She sleeps naked with you. She had your son. So it's a little ridiculous, but
it's definitely some weak shit.
Yeah. There you go. Couldn't have said it better. It's some weak shit, period. Okay. Let me see what else we got. Okay. Now this one came from The Flood with Doc and Ziggy. This is also a long one and it's about Magic the Gathering. And he sent this a while ago, all the way back in April. Jeez. And I wanted to read this, but I knew that this one was going to take a while to not only read, but then I think to talk about it takes a little bit of time too. So this will probably be the last one and then we'll wrap this episode up. But I really like this story. I thought it was awesome. And I even replied back to him and let him know, like, we didn't forget about this.
R.I.P. We're going to get to the Bakugo one day, I promise.
Oh no, we'll do it. We'll do it. Okay. So this one is called Standoff in Honolulu. And there is this Magic the Gathering card called Platinum Angel. So let me look up Platinum Angel because I want to read off what Platinum Angel does before I even read this story so that you guys know exactly what is going on in this story without it being too confusing. So Platinum Angel is a Magic the Gathering card that says you can't lose the game and your opponent can't win the game. So it's a monster Basically, it's an artifact creature, whatever the fuck that means. Basically, it's a monster that has that effect, okay? Just simplify it to not get too crazy if you don't know what Magic the Gathering cards are or whatever. It's essentially a monster that says you can't lose the game and your opponent can't win the game. Now, here's the thing called Standoff in Honolulu. It says, I remember a funny story about a kid and his Platinum Angel, which some of you may know. However, the original site seems to be down, though I found a copy of it, which I wanted to share with you guys. The big story of the Honolulu Pro Tour wasn't Kazuya Mitamura's $40,000 victory in the finals. The big story happened in the first round where a young boy known only as Hans did something that is causing many to call him a hero. Hans' game was looking unwinnable. He had a negative life total and was kept alive only by his Platinum Angel. His opponent had just cast a Molder Slug, threatening to remove the Angel, Hans' only artifact, at the beginning of his next turn. But when it got to that next turn, Hans would say a word that would put the whole series of events in motion. A word that would send ripples throughout Magic the Gathering's history. A word that would cement Hans' legendary status. Hans stared at his opponent and said, no. His opponent was taken aback. Judge, said the opponent, he's refusing to follow my Molder Slug's triggered ability. Refusing? Refusing. Is this true, Hans? Hans nodded. The judge said, I have to issue a game loss, Hans. Hans pointed to his Platinum Angel. I can't lose the game, he said. And with that, he proceeded to his next draw step, undaunted by the judge's rulings. Then he skimmed through his deck for marked cards and put those in his hand as well. You're violating multiple game rules, said the judge, in addition to ignoring my ruling, and I am issuing a game loss to you. Hans, his finger still stuck to the Platinum Angel, like a modern-day little Dutch boy with his finger plugging the leak in the dike, said, you can issue all the game losses you want, but with my Platinum Angel in play, they have no effect. Hans proceeded to the attack phase and swung for 4 with his Angel. He then looked at his opponent's face-down morphs, referred to outside notes, and substituted cards from his sideboard. The judge stood before him, flummoxed. Without saying a word, Hans merely looked at the judge while pointing to the Platinum Angel. It was when Hans cast a demonic attorney that the head judge was called over. Auntie cards are banned, the head judge said. That's a complete violation of the rules. But when he saw Hans' Platinum Angel in play, he was quieted. He knew he was defeated. Hans said, since the demonic attorney's in the game, we have to do what it says. He proceeded to put the top card of his opponent's deck into his trade binder. The head judge frowned in disapproval. He's right. It was a matter of hours before Hans owned his opponent's entire deck, as well many other cards from his opponent's collection, thanks to a Mind Slaver and Ring of Marov. Each time judges tried to issue Hans a game loss for casting cards without mana or playing cards in his graveyard, Hans merely pointed to his Platinum Angel. The cards Hans didn't want to take from his opponent, he tore up, due to interactions involving Chaos Confetti, March of the Machines, and Cyto Shape. Having by this time gathered quite a crowd, Hans produced a folded and wrinkled copy of the DCI Infraction Procedure Guide from his pocket and began skimming it for ideas. He noticed that kicking an opponent's chair out from under them was listed under unsportsmanlike conduct, so he did just that. He also kicked the chairs out from under several other nearby players and spectators. The sun was starting to set. The judges had not even attempted to give Hans a game loss for stalling. One by one, they had hanged their heads and walked away, resigned to their powerlessness in the face of the Platinum Angel. Then one of them hatched a plan. I know who we can call, the judge exclaimed. The next morning, Hans was awoken by a voice blaring across the room from a police loudspeaker. Hans, the voice said, this is your mother. I love you. Please sacrifice your Platinum Angel to the Molder Slug's triggered ability so this can all end. Hans lifted his head, looked around the room, and kicked his opponent's chair out from under him once more. Hans, his mother said, we miss you. We just want you to come home. Hans yawned, cast the unglued card Handcuffs, and ordered his opponent to touch his hands together. It was day 4 of the standoff when another voice blared across the room. Hans, the voice said, this is your fiancé. There are only 2 more days until our wedding, honey. Don't you still want to get married? You have to end this game now, Hans. Please just sacrifice the Platinum Angel to the Molder Slug. We love you. We're worried about you. Hans's mouth hung open, agape. A tear came to his eye. Marcia, he said, I love you too. He looked about him, seemingly aghast at what he had done. He paused. I concede. A flurry of applause burst through the room. Judges began high-fiving each other and giving Marcia hugs. Unfortunately, Hans said, the concession has no effect, since my Platinum Angel is still in play. It was 2 weeks into the game when the military showed up. Hans, came a voice from the helicopter. We have you surrounded. If you do not concede immediately, we will open fire. Hans looked up at the helicopter, over at the tanks, and across the street at the snipers. He was still pointing to the Platinum Angel as stoically as ever. To this day, a sleeved Platinum Angel remains embedded in Han's tombstone. Hans may have lost his life that day, but he never lost the game.
Glory to Hans.
So that story, when I read it way back in April when this was first sent, I was so fucking entertained by it. I think that this is one of the best things I've ever read. I don't know like how much of it is true or whatnot. Obviously, a lot of it is just, hyperbole, but I love so many things about it. And yeah, I'm glad that you shared this with us. Amazing story. So
pretty legit. I looked
Yeah.
up Platinum Angel. Pretty cool art too.
It is. It's a really cool card. It's a really cool card. And it says you can't lose the game and your opponent can't win the game. And he took that shit personally. He said, literally, no matter what happens, no matter how many game losses you try to issue or penalties or who you call, I can't lose the game and you can't win the game. And honestly, he's not wrong. So that shit is fire. But yeah, I think that was awesome. And then apparently they changed the rules surrounding that. Like after that event, there was a whole rule about Platinum Angel that came about. So let me see if I can read this. So it says, effects that say the game is a draw, such as the Legends card Divine Intervention, are not affected by Platinum Angel. They'll still work. You can concede a game while Platinum Angel is on the battlefield. A concession causes you to leave the game, which then causes you to lose the game. Once you concede, you no longer control a Platinum Angel, so its ability can't prevent you from losing the game. Then another rule says, no game effect can cause you to lose the game or cause any opponent to win the game while you control Platinum Angel. It doesn't matter whether you have 0 or less life, you're forced to draw a card while your library is empty. You have 10 or more poison counters. You're dealt combat damage by Phage the Untouchable. Your opponent has Mortal Kombat with 20 or more creature cards in their graveyard or so on. You keep playing. Then another rule says, other circumstances can still cause you to lose the game, however. You will lose the game if you concede, if you're penalized with a game loss or a match loss during a sanctioned tournament. And then the last one says, if you control Platinum Angel in a two-headed giant game, your team can't lose the game, and the opposing team can't win the game. So Hans literally, apparently, got some rulings changed in the official world of Magic the Gathering. So that is
a rant.
Yes. Okay, so we actually still have time to do Vincent Zen's listener letter, which let me go into the folder. So this is the Bakugo one. It's actually not that bad considering what I just read. This isn't too bad. So this one we've been asking him why he thinks Bakugo is such a bad, poorly written character, or whatever.
Because he changed his Patreon name to Ka-chan is a bad character, or a poorly written character, or whatever it is on Patreon. And so every fucking week we have to read it.
Yes, which is dedication. But without any further ado, it says this one goes out to all of My Hero Academia and Bakugo lovers. Here is my detailed explanation for why I absolutely abhor and detest Ka-chan. It's really lengthy, so bear with me, but here's a bit of my backstory with My Hero Academia anime too. I watched anime as a kid and read a lot of manga, but mostly stopped once I got to high school. It wasn't until 2018 in my senior year of college when I got back into anime, but also really deep dived and became a weeb. I started watching a bunch of the highly rated anime on MAL.
My anime list.
Oh, my anime list, as one does. But for the longest time, I evaded My Hero Academia despite hearing incredible things about it. I've never been a superhero person, so the idea of a superhero anime didn't excite me, much less one where every quirk also seemingly has a drawback of some sort. I resisted for so long that one of my group chats was titled Operation Get Vince, an episode of My Hero Academia to watch, which it is still named to this day. I also imagined it to be a very stereotypical shonen, so when I finally caved and started to watch it, I critiqued the shit out of every turn that I saw. To see Horikoshi copy Kishimoto's homework didn't do it any favors. On to the reasons why I hate Ka-chan. First and foremost,
side note, I don't know if this letter will get into it, but if not, I'm gonna need an explanation on what that means. What homework did he copy?
Yeah, I need to.
I don't know what in My Hero is necessarily copied from Naruto.
Right.
At least not that I can think of.
Okay, on to the reasons why I hate Ka-chan. First and foremost, he's a complete asshole who doesn't really care about anyone but himself. As my friend calls them, Ketchup and Mustard only follow him around because Bakugo is smart and has a lot of wherewithal. If I had to guess, they also feel bad for him because he's always abrasive and a standalone character, so let's go keep him company. My very humble opinion, Ka-chan literally has no friends. Class 1A has written the show, they care for him as a comrade, but that further makes me irritated with it all. Deku is the only one who genuinely cares for Bakugo as a friend, and that whole dynamic clearly was a one-way street for every season until the most recent one. How is it that All these characters are literally made to care for Bakugo when he's the most annoying piece of shit ever. Imagine actually having classes with him, having to spend significant parts of your day with him for most days of the week, and every time he's prompted to talk, he just screams his head off as if asking simple questions naturally garners such ridiculous responses. He has no social awareness or doesn't care about how others view him, and I promise you if such a person were to exist and live like Bakugo, they wouldn't have any friends and barely any sympathy would be shown to him. Every time I find myself enjoying an episode of My Hero Academia and Bakugo shows up, my experience is instantly ruined because he just screeches in my ears and it makes me not want to continue with the show. Side note, I finally dropped it. I couldn't be bothered to finish the last season. Narratively and story-wise, he's just a carbon copy of Sasuke, except he's written to be a good character. It's another ding to why I don't like him because his story doesn't feel original whatsoever. He doesn't stand out as a character unlike a lot we've seen before. In fact, he's worse because in previous shonen like Naruto and DBZ, at least Sasuke and Vegeta were written better to not pierce your ears as a viewer every time they took to the screen. Sasuke actually had real motivations and legit reasons for why he's so edgy. Vegeta is the prince of all Saiyans and talked his shit. Bakugo, he just wants to be like plain ass Ash Ketchum, the very best like no one ever was, while also shouting on screen every damn time he appears. How he has so many fangirls behind him baffles me. The last bit that really bothers me is that a lot of people think he's the best written character of the show, and I see where y'all are coming from, but when most of the main cast are already poorly written characters, it's not that hard to write a slightly better one. It doesn't mean much to be a nickel when everyone else is a penny. Bakugo realizing and blaming himself for the retirement of All Might, it was good writing and changed people's perspectives of him, but not to me. Or no, it says, but to me, it was just lazy writing. We're now supposed to accept this is just who he is because Horikoshi said so. We saw him be cocky in season 1 and 2 to getting humbled and kidnapped in season 3. He was barely around in season 4 and 5. To me, it was just a sudden shift where he wasn't portrayed much and we don't really see him develop as a character on screen to out of nowhere like, yeah, I'm actually an in-depth character. Bakugo really is just a whiny ass bitch who won't shut the fuck up. I prayed to God that Genya got fucked and died in season 3 of Demon Slayer just so I wouldn't have to keep hearing Bakugo on my screen. What the hell? Why I care so much to argue Ka-chan is a poorly written character for such a mid-show, mainly because the show was so overhyped and honestly had a lot of potential to be absolutely incredible, but the pacing of hype arc, training arc / back to school hype arc, back to school again, My Hero Academia has so much to offer, and for me, it fails to deliver on so many fronts. Mic drop, deuces. So, I don't think Bakugo is the best written character in My Hero Academia. I think it's Deku, and I don't think it's close. So there's that. I do think that Bakugo is an interestingly written character because I went into it with some of the same preconceptions that you had, where I thought that he was just a carbon copy of Sasuke. I think that we said as much on this podcast before. I thought that Bakugo was literally going to be Sasuke when he got kidnapped. I thought he was going to become evil. I thought all the things that happened in the Naruto retrieval arc, the Sasuke retrieval arc, I thought that those things were going to happen in My Hero Academia. And I was very surprised that when the bad guys, when the villains, the League of Villains, they captured him and they were like, yo, do you want to join us? And he started literally cursing them the fuck out. I was like, oh shit. And then come to find out, he's actually a huge fan of All Might. And that's one of the reasons why he's so jealous and annoyed by Deku, because he feels like, why do you like this kid who didn't even have a quirk until recently somehow? Why do you like him so much? And you have this weird interest in him, but you never notice me. And I'm like one of your actual biggest fans, and I'm trying so hard. And when you think about the fact that they're children in real life actually feel this way. Like children often worry about attention. It's a really big deal to them. And a lot of his motivations do honestly make sense to me. As far as the yelling thing, like I get it. That is annoying. I genuinely do not care for him yelling every time he talks or whatever like that. That is just an anime like thing that they do. Same thing with Black Clover. And many other anime have these characters that are just kind of loud and obnoxious for no reason. But I get it. Like we all have that friend, or we met someone or know someone who is just very loud and obnoxious. And every time they open their mouth, you're kind of like, oh God, here we go. So that person, that type of human exists. But I do not think that he is some poorly written character. I genuinely don't. I think that his character development throughout the manga and the anime is reasonable. Like I think that he starts off as someone who looks at the main character is like, okay, well, I don't really care about you and you're not really that close to me because you don't have a quirk and you're kind of shit. And if I'm being completely honest, that's how mean kids are. Like kids are fucking mean, bro. Like they just are. Kids are just little shits. If 80% of all kids were born with powers and 20% weren't, you know the 20% would be teased for it. So Bakugo is just your regular bully. Like he's a regular bully that exists right now that would exist in a world like My Hero Academia if that were a real world. So that's one thing on that. Or I guess that's like several things on that. But I don't think that he copied Kishimoto's homework, because Kishimoto's not even the first person to have somebody seemingly be an antagonist to the main character and then becomes more of a supportive role to the main character. Like, that is not a Kishimoto exclusive. That is not a Kishimoto origin. That is, yeah, like I'd sooner give that to Akira Toriyama before I gave it to Kishimoto, right? Like, that is just, yeah, it's just factually, there's so many other mangaka who came before Kishimoto that have done the exact same type of thing where villain or antagonist becomes good guy. So if you're just
Hunter. I mean, Hunter x Hunter, Killua was never a villain, but like the whole relationship between Killua and Illumi, and Hunter x Hunter was written before Naruto, is like very similar, feels very similar to Itachi and Sasuke.
Yes. So I don't see the copy homework thing. I think that's just like, maybe, and this is not to be offensive or to dig at you, but I don't know how much anime you've actually seen, but I don't know how you attribute that characteristic or that part of a story to Kishimoto specifically. Naruto is very popular. I get that part, but like, that's not a Kishimoto hallmark. You know, that's not like the only thing that, or that's not an origin of Kishimoto's. So I'll say that. What do you want to say about the Bakugo thing, Kenny?
So a couple things. I agree with just about everything you said. And I think that there's certainly evidence of Bakugo's character development long before the alleged, like, you know, character shift where he suddenly got character development.
Right.
That's being alleged. Also, obviously, you know, different people like different things. If, you know, some people don't like My Hero Academia, they find it to be mid, that's fine. I personally really do enjoy the pacing of it. I like the fact that you can have a really big hype arc and then the show gives itself time. I think the training, back to school stuff, it gives the show pacing. It
I
has like My Hero Academia avoids the biggest problem with not Black Clover. I mean, Black Clover does this too, but Demon Slayer.
Yeah.
Demon Slayer's problem that we've said in every season we reviewed is that it's paced way too quickly, and every single like arc just goes into the next hype thing. They're like, training downtime is usually an episode or half an episode, and then they're like suddenly in the next big thing. Demon Slayer could like take a lesson from My Hero Academia, in my opinion, and slow down and have slower arcs to help build the pacing and lore of the world. To the actual point here about Ka-chan, though, Fraser already touched on it. He also thought that he would be kind of like a Sasuke ripoff at first.
Yeah.
And then really, I think that is a key turning point, or should be for a lot of people when they look at him. When you go there and you realize, like, what a lot of people went into that thinking, oh, he's going to join the villains. And then when he showed like his own kind of moxie and showed his own part, like, you start to understand him more, even if you don't fully understand his reasons or whatever. You don't know at that time he's a big All Might fan and all this other stuff. But that shows how much of his own agency he has. And it's a development in his track, because at that time, some people just kind of think he just wants to be strong for the sake of being strong.
Right.
And
he just wants to be number one, just to be, you know, like you said, Ash Ketchum in this letter, Vincent, you said Ash Ketchum, I just want to be the best that no one ever was.
The thing is, that's the thing. It's not just that, though, right? Just like how LeBron James is probably inspired by Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant that came before him. They were the best at something, and then like that inspires other people. Like Michael Jordan was LeBron's All Might, and then LeBron can go and, you know, whatever. So like I think, especially like Fraser said, them being young, their emotions are in constant flux. There can be bullies, and they can also be nice and have empathy and go through all these different things. And when he sees All Might, you remember he sees him as a child, and he's still a child, but just a little bit older. He's inspired by this person that like stands there and is able to, no matter what the obstacle is before him, he defeats it and overcomes it. And Bakugo wants to be that. He wants to, no matter what obstacle stands before him, he wants to overcome it. And it's something that starts kind of like this hatred for himself. A lot of his anger is really directed at himself. When he sees Deku, somebody who doesn't have power, somebody who's beloved below him, when Deku offers to help him when they're kids or whatever, that bothers him because he wants to be All Might. That's something that you don't fully understand at the time. And as it goes on, you start to get hints of it. I think you get hints of it long before it gets revealed, and then it gets revealed. This is a person who wants to be, it's not just he wants to be the best. He has an inspiration. He has an idol and an icon to look toward, and he has a real life example of somebody who always saves the day. without fully realizing that he lost his fucking stomach doing it, he just sees, All Might. And so when he sees somebody below him like Deku offering him help or being there for him, he feels it's a weakness in himself and he needs to become stronger. There's even a part later on where All Might tells him like, hey, he does like a video game reference. He goes, because Deku's progressing so fast and learning all these new things and getting so much better, and Bakugo isn't progressing as much. And All Might says, you're already at level 50. You can't expect to make the same gains and progression as somebody at level 1. Like Deku is he's starting at level 1 and he's making such huge progression leaps so quickly because he's like just started making that progression, whereas you've already been progressing for years. You can't get mad at yourself for not making the same progression at the same speed as Deku is. So I think there's a lot that goes into his character, a lot to look at, and in my personal opinion, think it's unfair to say that he's poorly written or to say that his character development kind of came out of nowhere, because I think it is certainly littered throughout the series, and you can find hints of it through his actions and through his dialogue. Even when he's fucking screaming his head off, you can find the hints of it scattered throughout the series, and then the big reveal kind of puts all of that back in the perspective. I don't think he's anything like Sasuke, especially now. I don't really think. I don't think he's
a character who's willing to do whatever it takes to avenge his clan and also to get power. He's willing to do things that are technically considered like evil things, right?
Yeah.
Bakugo literally is loyal to the human race, to the good guys, to the heroes. At no point do we ever get an inclination that in order to get stronger than Deku, he's willing to go to the dark side to get that power.
Yeah, and I think I know Sasuke and Vegeta get compared a lot. I think other than Bakugo simply being Deku's foil in the way that Sasuke and Vegeta are Goku and Naruto's foil, I think Bakugo, other than that being the main character's foil, I don't think he has anything in common really with those characters. From a writing standpoint, they have some personality traits in common, I guess. But
like Vegeta's loud and yells a lot, but like at the same time, their motivations are very different.
Yeah, I also think a lot of the characters are pretty well written. I don't know. I think a lot of the characters, I think Kirishima, he's the guy with the red hair. Yep. I think he's well written, and I like what we get from him. I like, just as another example,
Shoto
of both
is really well written.
Shoto is great. I think. I think
Endeavor.
I think Endeavor is probably a better written character than Bakugo. But
yeah, I agree.
I think Bakugo is great, but I think Endeavor, his character, his full, but everything we learn about Endeavor is absurd. I think.
Yeah, because at first, hold your point real quick. I just want to say this one little thing, and I'm not even going to take long. So in seasons 1 and 2, it is very like grounded in the character development, but I think that's like every anime or whatever ever. And then we find out so much more. When you first meet Endeavor, the only thing you know is that he's like the number 2 hero and that his son hates him. And dear God, did I not know how well they would go into the backstory on the family that Endeavor has harmed in the past, the issues with the mom and his siblings. And there's a huge spoiler and stuff like that I won't even bring up, but there's a lot surrounding Endeavor and his character and why he is the way he is and why his children are the way they are. And I just think that is what happens when you watch a story unfold over the course of several hundred chapters.
Yeah.
Like it goes on so long that yes, it's going to get better. There's going to be more development. But if you just watch, like you only watched a couple seasons of it, apparently. Yeah, if you just watch a couple seasons and stop, then I don't know what to tell you. Like you didn't get the full story. I mean, there's still more to be told. That's the thing about manga. It's not like a movie where you watch 2 hours and everything is in those 2 hours. And whatever's not in it, that's just not in it. And you just have to accept that whatever development you did or didn't get, that's it. It was a 2-hour movie. With mangas that are still ongoing, like My Hero, like you stopped in the middle of a story and then you're like, this character's poorly written. It's like, okay, I mean, I don't like the character's still being developed though.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because, and everybody writes at their own pace. If you take something like One Piece, there are nuggets and information placed throughout the story 10 years ago that don't get their full fruition until 10 years later. There's things in One Piece that have been foreshadowed and led up to.
As crazy as that sounds, yeah.
Literally 10, 15, 20 years ago. And some of those things don't get payoff for literal decades. And that's the way Oda chose to write it. And honestly, it creates these awesome payoffs. And I think similar to Endeavor, they have to let you hate Endeavor and think he's an irredeemable person for a long enough time for you then go, oh, wow, he's redeemable in a way that, and what I mean by that is because like what he did is irredeemable, what he did to his family. But at the same time, I think this comes with just getting older, at least for myself. as you get older, you just get more empathy. You just feel for things more. And I understand Endeavor's position in that what he did is irredeemable and unforgivable. And he agrees. But he's an older and different person now. And regardless of what you see on TikTok or Instagram that say like people don't change, like they do. And as you get older and you look back on your life, you just have regrets. There's nothing you can do about it. There's things that you're going to regret. And like you look back on those things and they fucking hurt you. And I see that in Endeavor, and that like he looks back on his life and he regrets so many things about it and he feels bad about it. And he knows those things are unforgivable, but he's not going to just let that. He's going to take the opportunity to go, okay, even though these are unforgivable, I'm going to I'm going to try to be a better person. I'm going to try and get my family back, even though I know I don't deserve it. And I think that makes him a very well-written character. I know we're talking about Endeavor, but I think there's similar nuggets of writing in what we see in Bakugo and what we see in Kirishima and what we see in Todoroki and Deku and All Might. We see these in a lot of the characters in My Hero Academia. I think it is really, in my opinion, really well done. I know in the years since it came out, after it was like super hyped up, I know that it's kind of been getting dogged by a lot of people. People say it sucks and like Demon Slayer is better, which I just, I personally disagree with.
Yeah. I never thought, and it's crazy. I actually never thought Demon Slayer was better written than My Hero, because I mean, My Hero's story was just always way more captivating to me. Visually, sure, like Demon Slayer has it, but that's it.
Yeah, but I do appreciate the full breakdown of your opinion here.
Like, I get it. If you only get a certain amount of Bakugo, and I'm not really trying to convince you either. I don't want to be misunderstood here. Like, I'm not trying to convince you that he's a well-written character or whatever, because
we're just giving our perspective on what we feel about it.
Yeah, because like, for example, I think a much better version of a character who did something irredeemable and who you hate in the beginning, but then you grow to like or understand later on. The best version of that to me in any medium, I think, is Jaime Lannister. When I think about characters like that, Jaime Lannister comes to mind every time, because I love when I put people on the Game of Thrones for the first time and they watch seasons 1, 2, and 3, and you see who Jaime Lannister is, and then you get to like, the end of season 3, the beginning of season 4, and he gets his kind of redemption stuff, and you get context to what happened, and everything changes and recontextualizes who he is as a person. That character development from season 1, episode 1, where he pushes a kid out the window, and you're like, that is like, this guy, there's nothing this guy can do that will make me empathize with him, right? And all the other things that he's done, it's just like, damn, this is a horrible person. Like, this is a horrible human being, incapable of any redemption. But then you start to find out what happened to him. And not that it makes it okay, but you understand why he is the way he is at the very least. And he does have some redeeming qualities. Like, there's the whole Sansa and mainly Sansa arc thing that, he does stuff that I think truly makes him worthy of a bit of redemption. And he has one of the best written arcs for that type of character. But Bakugo, like, his story is still unfolding. The manga's still ongoing. There's been a lot that's happened with him since you stopped. But even if you stop where you are, I think that at that time and even before that, like Kenny said, there's been foreshadowing of who he is as a person and like why he is the way he is. And My Hero is still, it's a fun anime, it's a fun manga. It's not too serious. Like, it does have some serious things about it, but I don't know what you're into to compare it to something else that you're into. Everyone has different taste levels, so maybe that could be a thing. Like Kenny did say at the beginning, like, everybody likes different things. So it could just be like, yeah, this just isn't for you, because the superhero thing you said isn't really your thing. And I get that too, because I don't like superhero stuff either until My Hero. I typically don't really care for, like, I didn't grow up reading comics. I've never read Marvel or DC comics growing up. It never appealed to me, but I read manga and I watched anime, and those things appeal to me, and I still read manga to this day, but I still don't feel the inclination to read Marvel or DC comics. So like, superheroes from the Western standpoint don't really appeal to me. And for whatever reason, Japanese, the way they do things, it does. So I like My Hero and their take on superheroes. Maybe that's just me being a weeb, I'm not really sure. But for whatever reason, I do like the My Hero take on the superhero genre. And we did a whole episode on this, so if you haven't heard it before, guys, definitely check that one out on our My Hero. We have to follow it up too with the next 3 seasons. But yeah, that's kind of my piece on it. It's just like, maybe the superhero genre, no matter who's writing it, isn't for you. Because a lot of the things in My Hero are just superhero genre things. You're going to get them in every single one.
I want to say another thing, and this reminds me, I don't remember specifically what our point was, and it was an episode of the podcast, but we talked about how sometimes people look at writing and I think they place this, like, I forget what we were talking about. We were talking about like coincidences and how sometimes something happens in writing and people go like, that's such bad writing. Like, what's the chances of that happening? Like coincidence or whatever. And then like you ignore the fact that in real life, those same things happen, right? But like nobody's writing the story, like coincidences and like the way things happen in real, like things happen in real life sometimes in the same way you see them happen in something that's written. But when they happen in something that's written, people say it's bad writing and it's unrealistic. When realistically, things like that happened every single day.
Right.
And I want to relate that to something that says here where you say, in your opinion, Bakugo has literally no friends and etc. I think if you kind of, not you personally, you in general, as in anybody, if you observe people in general, and like Fraser said earlier, children and how like children bully people or whatever, but no matter who a person is, no matter how bad of a person is, they have friends. And like, even if they're a bully and they're mean to the people around them, there are other people that see that person's worth. And I think they show that through Kirishima, for example. Kirishima sees who Bakugo is, sees his worth, enjoys his company. They like each other. They become friends. And that's why they make a big moment of it. And there's one part where they need somebody to like reach out and like get Bakugo. And they like, at first I think it's suggested for it to be Deku. And then like, it becomes clear that like they can't, it has to, like the only person it can be is Kirishima. Because that's the only person that's actually Bakugo's like friend in this moment in terms of like them being friendly with each other. But the point is, even if you're a bully, even if you're whatever, everybody literally ends up with friends. And sometimes even if that person is kind of like mean to you, like you still accept and understand them. Now that can be a toxic relationship, but once again, that is realistic and that does really happen. So I think that is literally a realistic portrayal in those characters in the writing. And sometimes when people see those things in writing, they say like, oh, this is bad writing. And they completely ignore the fact that a lot of times what you're seeing does just happen in real life. And so like, is it bad writing or is it accurate to events and opportunities that show themselves in real life?
Like I was, just to wrap this up, but like Kenny said, and I also said, there are definitely some realistic things about my hero and how children are jealous of other children when a mentor, a sensei of some sort, a teacher of some sort takes interest in someone who you feel like is a little beneath you. And I can say this speaking from experience because I was a straight A student and I was one of the smarter kids in my class. And I remember there was this other kid who blatantly just scored not as well as me in tests and quizzes. But for some reason, my 7th grade teacher really liked him a lot. And it did bother me. Like I was annoyed that he took a liking. They had like this little relationship. And I didn't understand like, why the fuck do you like him so much when I'm the one who pretty much like I ace everything, I get everything. Sure, I'm a little smug and pretentious, but like in my head, I'm like, I'm better than him.
Yeah.
Like, he gets B's. Like why do you like him? Like for whatever reason, my teacher took a liking to this other kid more, and they had this special little bond or whatever. And it did tick me off in the back of my mind. Like I never vocalized it, but my little kid brain was jealous that I didn't have that relationship with my 7th grade teacher because what would happen is during class, he would do little things. The boy's name was Khalik. He would do things with Khalik that like singled him out, but in a way that was cool in the class.
Yeah.
And it would annoy me. And I'm like, that should be me. Like I should be getting whatever little single out thing that was cool for Khalik or like, I would like that should be me. And yeah, for whatever reason, he chose the other kid. And so I understand what Bakugo looks at Deku like, you're fucking beneath me. Like, get the hell out of here. Like it should be me. Like I'm better than him. I'm better than all these other people. Like it should be me. And so, children, again, because these are kids, their world is so small. Right now, I couldn't give a fuck what my 7th grade teacher thinks of me or Khalik. Right? Like it has no but at the time, my world was so small that his opinion or the way he treated a different kid mattered.
Mm-hmm.
So
and the thing is, even as adults, I think it happens less and it's less extreme. But even as adults, I think jealousy doesn't go away.
For sure.
Like jealousy, like people still get jealous at things that happen. So
yeah,
that was a lot of really good listener letters.
Yes. I think that wraps them up too. I'm glad you did point out the Vincent Zen one because I would have felt awful if we didn't get to this one. This one has been pending for a while.
Yeah, those were good. Those were all good.
Yeah, I think that's all of them. If you guys want us to read any of your letters out and talk about them on the podcast, again, write into IMNerdpodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's IMNerdpodcast@gmail.com. And we will read them aloud on the show just like we did today. Usually we do them in our episodes where it's just me and Kenny, but they piled up so quickly over time that I was like, there's no way to actually get through this backlog without still having guests. So we just decided to do a full episode on it. And then going forward, maybe we'll just do the regular thing where when we get one, we'll just read it and then keep it that way. But it also depends on volume.
Both of them work. Like I do like sometimes fitting them in at the end of an episode.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, like, it's pretty obvious over 100. Like, we can easily talk for 2 hours on just about any topic.
That first listener letter, we could have kept going.
Yeah. So it's kind of hard sometimes to fit them in at the end of the episode. I do like doing that, but I also do like doing an episode where it's like we cover like 5 listener letters or whatever.
No, this was good. I mean, we're at 2 hours and it's just been listener letter conversation outside of the beginning rant. So, all right.
Well, and then we're all good.
Yeah. So as we always do, I want to read out everyone on our Patreon. So there's 62 of you as of right now. And we just had our second IMNerd podcast small cup tournament where we gave away $100. And that was a huge success. You can check out the VOD on our YouTube channel. It was really fun live streaming that. And shout out to Dank Arm Dragon for getting first. Shout out to Hydro Pump for getting second. Enraged Peacock and Dominique Roberts for getting third and fourth. They all got a payout. First got 50, second got 25, and then third and fourth got 12.50 each. So that was pretty cool. Little double elimination tournament. I enjoyed doing that, and I would definitely want to do more of that in the future. What I'm thinking about doing, so those first two, we didn't charge an entry fee or anything like that. We just completely did it off the cuff. And for the second one, we got a donation of $100, which I gave all of it back as prize support. So I sent everybody got their payout already. And then the first tournament we gave out of our own pocket. So in the future, what I want to do is, obviously we all accept donations or whatever. If people want to donate to the tournaments, that's fine. I'll put it all into the prizes, but we can do like a local thing. Like I can run a local every week or every other week, because I do have the time now that we only podcast like once a week at this point. So I have more time to do something like if we want to do maybe bi-weekly, and by bi-weekly I mean every other week, because bi-weekly for some reason has 2 meanings. It could be twice a week or it could mean every other week, and I hate that.
That is so dumb to me.
I hate
we
it.
talked about that before. It is the dumbest thing ever.
But we could do like every other week we do a like online local, and we charge you guys $5, and all of it goes back to the players. Like I personally have no intention of taking money from the community to host tournaments. I think that you guys should get it all back as prizes. I'm not really doing anything, to be honest. I'm just setting up a bracket and then you guys play. So, but I want to stream it and like discuss it and commentate and have fun with it. I don't have to buy a venue or anything. So I understand why, tournament organizers, TOs, they take some portion of it or whatever for themselves because of all the stuff that goes into it. But I'm literally at home just like having fun on Dueling Book like I normally would be. So I don't mind just, if you guys want to pay $5 or $10 or whatever you guys feel comfortable with to run tournament. And then we do the prize structure the same way, where like winner gets 50%, second gets 25%, and third and fourth get the other 25% divided by 2. I'm totally down for that. I'm willing to run those like twice a month or whatever. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of that idea, because that's something that we could definitely do and it will be fun to do. So anyways, let me give a shout out to everyone on our Patreon right now. So we have Connie, Ronathan, Leon, Stardust Dragon Assault Mode gave me PTSD, Xavier, Hylian, Dimitri Barnes, Volvi knows a spot in the woods, By the Cum Trees. So that was added.
Yeah, By the Cum Trees.
Yes, Cum Trees. That's a callback too. I didn't know what a cum tree was until recently. Dominique Roberts, Giovanni Avala. So that means you listened to the Starship Troopers episode, right? Because that's what that's from.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Another thing, real quick. A perk that we just started offering is the podcast episodes will come out a week early on Patreon. So Starship Troopers is coming out this week, but it's already up on our Patreon right now, and it's been up for several days now. And so another episode will come out a week before it actually airs. So every episode comes out on Thursdays. And I'm guessing what I'll do is just like every Thursday, I'll put out the real episode for that week, but then I'll also put out a new episode on Patreon a week early. And that's just another perk that you guys get for being at the party member tier or higher. So just more value for paying your money. But yeah, so we got Dominic Roberts, Giovanni Avalos, Alex Flamer, Andre Reynolds, Dan Vrabel, Ezica, First to Home, S. Akuma, Mitchell Nels, Midwest Gaming. By the way, welcome back, Ezica. Appreciate you coming back.
Yeah, we were talking about him today.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Midwest Gaming, Mitchell Nels, if I already say that one. Demetrius Safarides, Vince Marquette, Dallas Bailey, KJ, Roz Weiss, Nick Stango, Hanto, our 2-time national champion. Shout out to Nick Stango for getting a promotion at his job recently. I'm really happy about that because me and him actually talk about finances and just life and goals and stuff like that. outside of Yu-Gi-Oh! And I told him that the truth is, when people ask me for financial advice in terms of, and I'm not a financial advisor, but when they ask me for advice in terms of how to save money or how to build up a savings account or bank account, whatever the case, I always say the truth to me, what worked for me is you just have to make more money. I didn't find a way to save money when I was younger and I first started working and I was making like 50, 60,000 a year. Like I was just spending money rapidly and I didn't really have a real savings like that. So what ended up working for me was just making more money has helped me to have a savings in a bank account and like investments and stuff like that. So that's what happened for me. And I think that the best way is to get promotions or to leave your job, go to another job and get a much higher salary. Cause that is the truth, is that you really do need to leave your job oftentimes to get more money. But yeah, Stango got a promotion and it was a pretty good one. So I'm happy for him. And yeah, on to more money. Hansei, our 2-time national champion. Ka-chan is a poorly written character. Sarah Maria, Sunny Top Cut Podcast, Alex Ahern, Philip Campa, Chris Lynn, Wookie 159, MSW 2389, Kyle Batelho, I'm not a hot pot, but I am chubby, Sugal, Nick, Mr. Soul Tie, Corey Fowler, Vicky Venomon, Elijah Barfault, and then we have
A True Hero, Tyler Tadeo, Volvi the Mega Monarch, Big Stinky, Duty Booty, Adam Corey, Enraged Peacock. Shout out to Enraged Peacock. He stopped by my stream yesterday. I was streaming Final Fantasy 16.
Newest follower.
Yeah, and Enraged Peacock popped in. He was hanging. He was like, I don't know what's going on, but this shit looks sick. So,
yeah. Final, especially where you are.
Yeah,
Final Fantasy 16 is crazy.
We're definitely going to be doing a podcast on 16. I'm assuming, I don't know where Fraser and Ant's at, but I'm assuming they'll beat it before me. So, you know, at some point when I beat it, I've been playing it actively, but not a lot because of work and stuff. But yeah, that'll be coming. Anyway, Leo Bacani, Janitor 215, feeling some Barbie titties. Thomas Rude, Joshua Carroll, Wayne Trader, Eric Chai, Finesse Kid, Tim Amaya, Owen Tedford, Jeff Strain, Veda, I'm not a Yu-Gi-Oh player, Golfin, AB, and finally we have Goat Explosion. That AB and Goat Explosion are our newest members of the Patreon. And I want to jump back, and once again, Fraser already said this, but welcome back, Azuka. He messaged me the other day. Like I said, he was like, I finally, you know, have some stuff I want to talk about and come on the podcast with you guys. And then he was like, also, I didn't realize I wasn't subscribed anymore. He was like, I thought I changed it to the $10 tier or whatever. He was like, but I guess I just never did. And he was like, so I finally realized I wasn't on the Patreon anymore. And he was like, I rejoined up. So I know that happens to some people. You just don't realize that either your card get declined or whatever. And
yeah,
that happened to him. He just like didn't realize that his card wasn't on there or whatever. And he was like, oh shit. And then he just redid it. So welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back. We appreciate everybody who's on there. And I also want to say duty booty, in case you thought I forgot. But there's that. But yeah, as I always say, guys, do things that make you happy, including reading off listener letters that are months old, but it just shows that people were still adamant about sending them in. And we are really, really happy for every single person.
Including being immortal.
Yes. I don't want to die either, Kenny. I really don't.
At least I'm happy I'm not alone.
Yeah, it's real. All right, guys, we're getting out of here. We will catch you on the next one. Peace.
Peace.